I think the mere name university tells us everything. You're here for a universal education. You're here to learn how to think critically. You're here to be ready for the real world. And in my opinion, I mean, we can't say it's pointless. Academia is important. There's a reason for academia. Academia is there to ensure that young people are able to come into the working world and have an ability to absorb, learn, and become a useful member of society. Now, I actually think that this whole conversation will not be happening if there wasn't a gap. You wouldn't have called all of us here to have a conversation about a perceived gap if we didn't know that there was a gap. And the truth is that in applying theory, in providing people with a universal education, I think sometimes, or in the last couple of decades or so, we've been stuck at the theory. Right. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a challenge, and I actually see that there's a lot of work that is going on to ensure that students are able to apply that critical thinking that they are being taught here into practice, and praxis actually when they move into the real world. Right. And for me, that's where the real conversation is. It's about how do we morph our students from understanding that the theories are real, but at the end of the day, it's really about how you apply those theories when you arrive at the world of work. Because no one's going to ask you what theory is this and what theory is that. It's just that innate ability and understanding that you got from the education you're currently having that will propel you. So it's not tangible, but it's the reason why everyone is here.
Right. Thank you, Cynthia. Let me come to you now. So yesterday I read a post from Gij Smith that says that the rainfall patterns are changing, and it means that the books are lying, or the books don't tell you what is happening in real life. And it gives you an indication of this entrenchment, especially for practitioners who feel that academics like you develop theories that really do not relate to what they do in industry. What will be your preliminary conversations on that?
Academics like me are not wrong. They are really, really like, savvy. You didn't laugh, I wanted you. Yeah, but my point is that, like she's just alluded to, there's a value for everybody's role, both the academic and the practitioner. Whether there are gaps, yes, I think so. There will be gaps. Some of them will be real. Some of them will be perceived. Is that a problem? I don't think so. Because for as long as there are gaps, there's reason for the academic to do their research, which then will feed into the teaching that happens in the classroom. If everything is at an equilibrium, then there's no motivation for people like myself to conduct research and use it to prepare the next generation. In my classroom, there's only so much I can cover, unfortunately. The student comes to us for a semester at a time, and you have all the things in the world you wanted to have taught a certain student about advertising, public relations, or marketing. So the focus will always be on laying the foundations with the expectation that industry would also do its part of the job, because industry is also a teacher. Right. Let's not confuse ourselves. It's not only academics who have the job of teaching. When our students come to the office, industry also owes them a responsibility to shape them and help them get to practice the things they've been taught by way of theory in the classroom. If that doesn't happen, then the expectation is that the student should have left the classroom and come to the industry fully baked. It cannot be, because there's always limits on what can be done inside the classroom. But we look forward to industry then taking the job and shaping the person, giving them opportunity to practice the things that the theoretical foundations have been used to put in their minds. When you come to my class and I teach you STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning, right? In the classroom, you don't really have an advertising campaign you're doing unless I set you a task like that. It is when you go into the real world that you get to actually know that actually you cannot run any advertising campaign without being conscious about, of the many people in the world to be spoken to, which of them should I actually focus on? That is STP. So the theory is relevant. What happens in the academic classroom is relevant. Industry also has a part of the role to play in building on it for it to really have impact in all of our lives, I think.
There is a reason we are products of the University of Leeds, and you are demonstrating that. So, let me come to you.
Can I just remind us also that there's a reason some are products also of the University of Ghana Department of
That's fair enough. But obviously, you haven't only been practicing, you've also been at the forefront of recruitment. You recruited young folks into your work, and I'm sure you'll be one of the people who will be watching out for some of the skills that come out from the classroom with. What are your opinions or your preliminary conversations on this very important issue?
Okay, thank you very much. I see some of my lecturers say, Mrs. Isando, I know she won't recognize me. Mr. Jim. We all want to admit there are gaps, but we want to also give credit where it's due. My fellow seniors here have admitted that within a term there's not so much we can do. We want to expect that if you go to an advertising class, you'll know everything you need to know within a space of, say, a semester. But you are copying notes, you are going for lectures, you're doing assignments, you're doing coursework. The purpose is to shape the students, but half the time it doesn't get done. And that is no fault of any person. I've sat in Mr. Jew's class where we do coursework, you're supposed to do some graphic design, conceptualize something. And some students, I don't know whether it's a challenge but you have students who take this concept out and get designers to do it for them to get higher marks, and people who would go through the pain of doing it themselves to get lower mark, and it bruises their ego and all of that. It is what it is. But as somebody who does recruitment, we look out for a certain skill set so that we can piece a story together, a normal press release. You don't know anything about composing a strategy document. I have a client pitch, and I want any recruit to say, put together initial thoughts. You don't even know how to go about your PowerPoint, where to put what. If you can manage to do something, it's a mess. So those are basic things that we would expect, because we know, and we've been students, and we are still students. We know we do coursework. We know we do class presentations, which are done in PowerPoint. So we expect that after all is said and done, if you really contribute in some of these discussions, when you come to the professional side, it's not a total overhaul. It's a continuity. So we apply your basic PowerPoint ideas that we saw from our colleagues' work, or the aesthetic. We apply them to practical thought. So those are the basic things that we expect. So writing, PowerPoint, critical thinking, observation, and some soft skills like photography. Because I learned how to use Adobe Audition in GIJ. We learned video editing in GIJ. In GIJ we had what's it called? The radio station, and some of us never went there. Yes, but those are places that once you go there, you learn a thing or two, and you go to the field, you can say, I can do this, I can do that. Let me end with a very interesting fact. So the first day I went to Global Media Alliance, Cynthia was in the room when I was recruited. We didn't talk about education. Nobody spoke to me about, I want to see your GID certificate, or I was brought in because I could write. I had a blog. And if you go to my blog, you see all the stories I have done. I started blogging some 12 years back. So I didn't go to come and write for me to see and come and do this for me to see. I read everything on my blog. I just entered the room, we discussed salary, can you work under pressure? I said yes. When can you start? rest is history.
Can I just add that and say that Pakwesi, I'm so proud of Pakwesi because in the role that he is in, he has climbed. He was outstanding from the very beginning. I think that a lot of you can aspire to, emulate his career trajectory.
So that was my first boss.
Hi, I'll come to you. I mean, you've been in practice and in academia. That was one of the things I like about the profile of the kinds of academics we have nowadays, where a lot of them have had a taste of industry while coming into the classroom. How timely do you think this conversation is?
Very timely. And I must say that when I was invited, I was laughing. And so I was just thinking, so am I coming to city academic or as a practitioner? When I spent over 15 years in industry, field work, bringing results. And I've also spent a little over 6-7 years also teaching. So I appreciate what the practitioners will say so very well, and I also appreciate what my boss man and Abdan and everybody was saying quite well. And I would say that these perceived gaps, they are just exaggerated. And if you even push me, I'll be tempted to say they are not existent. Why do I say so? Prof. Rector did say something. I like money because I'm an Ashanti. Yeah. So I was struggling to come to be a food. Yeah, because I was thinking, so should I come into full-time academia? I spent time working for some very good corporate organizations where they are paying very good money. And finally, I decided to step into academia. And one of the reasons why I came into academia was that after my PhD studies, I was still thinking, I still want to go back into industry and make my money. One of them, most of the HR panels, practitioners I met, they keep on saying, doctor, why do you want to employ a doctor? Theory, wow. You don't need anybody to come and do theory. You know, one time I encountered a serious senior banker and he was saying, I did very well in the interview, but the perception is that you are too theoretical. When we employ you, come and then talk about theory. Then I asked him, respectfully, what is theory? Simple, basic question, what is theory? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you couldn't tell me. But you are accusing me that I will be theoretical. So what is theory? So I can and surprisingly too, he had an MBA, he was a chartered accountant, and he's accusing somebody that is going to be theoretical. So what are you doing in the space? In the industry as head of HR and head of accounting. Then he asked me a question that, you see, our CEO is very difficult. And I said, what makes it difficult? Anything you are into IMC, PR and stuff, anytime you send out advertising budgets, no, the end you find a way to just cancel it and throw the budget away. And what is the problem? He says, so our advertising spend is so high, it's so huge, so that we are not making enough money, so we are not going to do advertising again. Then I said, okay, what are some of the things that will form your advertising spend? Then he tells me, the board chairman pick a call. I like Joy FM, so go and please advert on Joy FM. I like Metro TV. CEO says, and surprisingly, I want to be very blunt and practical. The CEO's wife listens to Kwame Sifakai, so let's go and put advert on Peace FM. That's what the CEO's wife prefers. And you come and accuse me that I am theoretical, so you're not giving me a job. What should inform your advertising spend? What should inform it? Then we sat down. So after the 5 minutes of conversation, he told me, do you still need a job? And I said, I don't need it. He was really motivated. And I said, okay, fine. Now let's because students are here, let's pick just one practical theory. So let's say resource-based view theory. And I know some of you understand. But basically what the resource-based view theory is saying is that before you spend, just like the situation I explained, look at your resources that you have. That should inform your kind of budget that you put in there, both internal resources and external resources. So if at the end of the day your profit margin is 1 million Ghana cedis, why should you draw an advertising budget of 500,000 and then I expect that your CEO will pass it? That's really, you should be informed. So after we talked, then he was asking me, so all these gaps are just exaggerated. Because if you really understand your theory, your practice will be better. That is my goal. If if you really understand your theory, your practice will be better, because that is the foundation. That is the basis upon which practice will come to life. So I say this forcefully. Sometimes I become a bit arrogant on discussions like this on TV, on radio, and I think I'm loud. But this is it. There, you cannot be. I have been there 50 years, so I don't talk because I don't know. I'm there, and I'm still there. And let me also say one thing. When I look at the training, I hope Prof and the Deputy Prof will not going to punish me for this. But I run away. I do a lot of trainings across Ghana, and number of them corporate organizations. Forgive me, sir. and I asked them that, why do you invite me if you think that we are too theoretical? But for the training, for your training needs, you always come to us to come and train you. So if you think that theory is not relevant, but these are the people, Professor Hinson and Gopal Hinson have done many, always. I need to record, hey, my galaxy partner, and you are laughing. So, not to talk too much, I just want to repeat what I said. That if you really understand your theories, your practice would be better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joyce, from this particular conversation, I don't know if you've changed your mind about the role of theory in practice, but I may as well hear what you think.
All right. So thank you very much. And if you look at the program, right, that has been sent to us, and you read carefully, then you begin to see, and I think that yesterday we had this conversation when the email was sent to me. Now, if, as a practitioner, I was going to send you the same document, right, to read, it would have been pretty much very straightforward, right? And maybe for the academics, this may look pretty much straightforward. But for us, and maybe I'll turn around to my fellow practitioners. How did you feel reading this?
Excellent question.
Right. And so I just want to say that for industry, really it's about action. And I think that you may have mentioned it. When you come in, everybody is looking at what have you done. And if you listen carefully to when the profiles were being read, you realize that for the academics, there is a lot of, they've done this, they've gone to this school, and then when you come back to, and maybe after this program, you can go back and really look at it. You realize that for the practitioners, it was more about some KPI, some activity, something that they have done. The truth is that you need the theories, and as Dr. said, you need the theories, because if you do not understand the agenda setting theory, right, when you have a crisis, because usually we use that. So agenda setting theory is basically you're changing the agenda or you're setting the agenda. You want people to talk about, so I'll say my brand in a particular way. So if I have a crisis right now, what do? Instead of me talking about the crisis, I talk about something else. And so I change the agenda from there talking about what is happening with my brand to something else. If I do not understand the agenda setting theory, it becomes very difficult for me to practice what I'm hired for. However, what we are saying is that sometimes it seems like in academia, there's so much focus on theories that we think may be outmoded. And I may come back, yes, the agenda setting theory is fine, but you realize that now is how do you set that? Now, the agenda setting theory talks more on the media setting the agenda. But you can see now that individuals are actually setting the agenda. When you go onto, you can go onto the website of different media houses and you realize that some of the news items they have on there are actually coming from individual interviews. You could see that sometimes a news comes out and it's someone's, maybe someone's tweet that has now become what is being discussed. In the past, it would be a politician or a policy coming up, but now individuals, influencers, are there theories around influencers that we should now be talking about? So that when I hire someone, and I have worked with national service, so I told my people, don't give me any national service person again, because sometimes when they come in, like writing a press release, and you are expecting that you have been taught, right? You know, like the tenets or the fundamentals of writing a press release, which is as simple as the 5 W's and the H. Please, do you know it? Yes. You know it? Yes. All right, so very well. Don't forget it, because when you come onto the job market, you need it for everything. And it is a theory, right? But it is how the individual translates it. So what I'm standing for is that, one, the individual is key, because your lecturers, we have also been here, isn't it? And today, we are doing what we are doing. We have been taught those theories. The theories are important, but do not think that is all. It is the application of those theories when you come in. And then to the school or to the lecturers, what we are saying is that the world is changing. And for us, things move or things change like quickly. For instance, you spoke about the weather, right? And there's a fact that this has been thought about, like climate change. It is what is happening currently. Are there theories around that that will begin to teach people? We talk about CSR when I was in school. Now it's no more CSR, it's ESG. Do you know what ESGs are? And when you come onto the field, that is what we are expecting. So yes, theories are important, but we want them to be, modified. Bring in what is happening externally so that the individuals that we are getting from the schools can come onto the stage and perform. And then again, for the student, do not forget your theories. You need them. But don't just sit on the theories and think that is all. You pass and then that's it. I want to add here, I used to work for a company where we were within, we're about 13 countries in Africa. And usually when they're looking for succession, they'll come to us in the Ghanaian market. Do you know what they always say? When it comes to qualifications, we are the most qualified. Like you find someone on the line who has a master's, you have someone who, and by the line I mean production line, so like the shop floor, they have a master's. And then you have someone sitting in the office even without a master's. But when it comes to the work, the experience, the quality of deliverables, they're unable to find. And really, you can find people with double masters, and I'm not saying it is not bad to learn. But however, now you begin to see that the gaps are really clear. So we have in the Ghanaian market, you have a lot of people who are qualified and even overqualified. But when it comes to the quality of work, they will always pick someone from Kenya, South Africa, Zambia, and then we are there. And then employees will begin to question, why are we not always being taken somewhere for secondment? Because you're focused more on what you have learned on your qualification, and really the application is an issue. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So I can see an intervention from Ike, but before that, let me say that if an academic's profile is read and they say you are published in a journal, that is also our KPI in academia. It is your KPI, it is part of the things you are required to do.
Yeah.
And I may also add that there are lots of variations of old theories that academics, we ourselves know, because for example, if you want to publish, you cannot go now and be talking about gender settings. You need to tell us the variation, which is what is happening today. So that is just by way of intervention. I'll allow I to come to
briefly, I just wanted to say that the theories are relevant. Just like you mentioned, we need to, and then I come back to my question, like what is a theory? And then definitely theories keep on evolving. And then people are adding on because Bossman and everybody have not stopped writing, researching, so they are adding on. Good. But what I want to say is that it is the context, the organizational context. I sat on an interview where I had one of my MBA students from here, GIK, come to apply for the job. And he was talking about the excellence theory. That PR, they asked her, what do you see? What are some of the challenges you see in this organization? He said, yes, why PR is praised is so wrong. Because the excellence theory says that PR is supposed to be part of management. He was advancing the argument so strongly. And I was looking at him. And I wish I could just go and say, break. Because, and what he was saying is true. The theory is true. And I will defend the theory today and tomorrow. But what was missing in his argument was that the context. For example, if you work with an organization that has the total staff strength, they are about 15, they are about 20. And you say that you are supposed to be added to management. So, yes, I think my colleague did say something. It's about the application. and then having an understanding of the context. When you read, those who have done, who pass through the business school and they have done strategic management, and you look at the strategic management process, formulation, implementation, all that. When they go to the actual world, that is how it is. But it depends on the context and the people who are just running it. If you really don't understand the dynamics, so it's upon us that after Bosman and Co has given you the theory, it is for you. That is, somebody mentioned it. University education is supposed to give you the fundamentals. And it's for you to also think through and then look at the context and how you can apply those theories there. But it's your understanding, the context understanding, how intelligent you want to be by applying those theories. That will make you very relevant.
Thank you, Ike. So, yeah.
Yes. At this juncture, we would also like to recognize some of our analysts who came in a bit. Please join us. We have Sophia here. And we also have Benjamin. Benjamin is also here. And our own Dr. Bosman is here as well. Fantastic conversation so far. So, Noah, let's keep the ball.
Thank you so much. Let me also say some of our faculty members have also joined us. We want to be grateful for your presence. So far, good to see you again. Great. So let's go into the conversation. I mean, you've heard some of the preliminary issues regarding this very topic. We are wondering if these gaps in what we find in academia and what we find in practice are actually perceived gaps or they are real. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. And I must apologize once again. I had to go for some of these practical things. I had to go for an interview in one of the institutions. I didn't know that you're in this beautiful edifice here. So I went all the way to the old school. And to find that I had my interview at La Paz. And I went all the way to here. Anyway, but we thank God for the opportunity to be here right now. So I'll say that some are perceived, some are real. Because when it comes to the workspace, what is there is what we call in a broad form. You understand? So you might have picked all the, in fact, there are times I tell people that I've had my education in various areas. There are times, it's when I enter the classroom, and I say, oh, so this thing I've been doing in the office, this is what it's called in academia, you know. And so there are some things that when you go into the workspace, you realize that, yes, you have the theory, but it has to be put in context, as I said. And sometimes we can make it easier for ourselves through internships and offering ourselves. It might not be an internship, but you just go and offer yourself to volunteer to do things, just to learn or try to appreciate whether what you're learning in school is what is pertaining here. Because you can learn all the press releases, it's the same everywhere, but at the end of the day, there's such a thing called a house style. How does just one want their news release to be written? How does these people want theirs to be written? How do we start it? Every house and the way. So it boils down to the application. The theory is key. It's important. It gives you the basics. It gives you something to stand on to the next level. But it's important that you have that humility, that kind of soft skill to enter into the workspace and say that, oh, we learned this at school, like the theory of excellence that we're talking about. You come into the workspace and realize that, okay, can I be humble enough to learn what is pertaining here before I know where to apply what I have learned in school? It is very important. So once we are picking the theories, let's also pick some soft skills that helps us to be able to converge the two, because one cannot go without the other. They have to work together.
Well, can I just make a quick intervention and remind ourselves what the academic role in society is? Our primary job is knowledge creation. and then we share that knowledge, whether through the classroom or the trainings that he's been doing for Galamsey that he's about to be sacked for. So we create the knowledge and we use however many avenues available to us to share that knowledge. There are two key resources that increasingly I've noticed that the academic is being denied. The first one is the resourcing for running that institution and the teaching and learning environment. Increasingly, the money and other resources needed to do that and be good at it are being taken away from the academic. But alongside it is a growing expectation that the academic should do magic and still be able to produce people who are ready for market. If we want very high caliber students or products, we need to be ready to make the investment. The second resource that has been being taken away from us, he alluded to, is the individual student's readiness to be prepped. Unfortunately, we are dealing with increasingly students who are not driven. They don't want to do the work. They want somebody else to do the work for them. All they came in there for is a certificate. So they will walk out with a certificate and not be able to do anything with that certificate. If you take that resource from that academic, unfortunately, I cannot cut your head and do surgery and put agenda setting, which by the way has evolved to agenda building, agenda melding, intermediate agenda setting, because the academic's job is to observe those changes that are happening and concept, give it a name, give it a meaning, give it an explanation. That is what theory is. But if we don't have the resources, and I'm not here to complain, until we make sure that this is priority for us, we want to make sure anybody who leaves the classroom can deliver on day one when you give them a responsibility, until we make it that priority, and until that student coming into the conversation is ready to leave the classroom, ready for the market, there's really very little that can be achieved.
Right. I'd like to add.
Okay.
All right. So in this instance, and I know parents equally in society have also the chance to socialize. I mean, all of us, yes, so that we are driven, we have values, but is there that space in the university as well to drive that soft skills we are talking about? Because you can have all the degrees, but if you come in and you're not driven, then what happens? Then can we compare students coming in from here and then someone from Ashesi? And I have had the chance actually to work with people from Ashesi, and I'm not even going to talk about people coming outside of this country, right? So let's put it in the Ghanaian context. And you realize that someone from Ashesi comes in and they have both the theory and they have both, and they have soft skills. They have even skills that you, as a practitioner, is able to learn. Is there something that is missing in the wider university?
Right.
I don't know what you're about to say, but I have a first part of an answer to it. As a society, we seem to have lost any concept of value.
Okay, good, yes.
You see, somewhere in this room is somebody who didn't pass BEC, but whose parents cut them a shortcut. In doing that, the parent taught the child a lesson that you don't have to work hard. We don't realize the repercussions of these silly things we are doing with our children's lives. So you go and pay a certain drive, get them in a certain school, they finish WASI, they don't do well because of course you told them not to do well. You showed them that even when you don't do well, I will buy you away. So these are people growing with no sense of strong values, no sense of personal ethic. When you put that person in a person's face, it's really sometimes difficult because unfortunately when they get to the university also, they've partially been molded. And sometimes they are not that ready. I mean, the person who comes to your office with a degree comes there thinking, I have a degree. Do you understand? Everybody pause. Madam Degree has arrived. And they are not ready to learn because they've not built up a culture, a personal sense of ethic that makes them ready to learn. Ghanaians, I'm saying it is Ghanaians. All of us are getting ourselves to where we are. And until we start revising our script in how we are socializing at home, how we are socializing at church, how we are socializing in the classroom, this story, we will come here 20 years later. We'll recycle these discussions.
Right.
So can I just jump in there? I know you're eager to,
Cynthia, go ahead.
but I'm dying to jump in. I think that, so just to give you a little bit of my background as well, I did teach. I taught for 2 years. I taught comps. And I actually taught at the time that I was in grad school. So interestingly enough, I hadn't done a single course in communications before then. I did do literature in high school, but in university I did economics and French. So when I went to grad school and I was teaching, I taught first year accelerated composition. I didn't have any qualification whatsoever to be a teacher. Now, at that point in my career, I had never sat in a communications class, but I had been doing communications work. And I want to emphasize something here, that for me, in the work that I do, typically, it's about the person's mindset.
Yes.
Your thinking, your interest in learning, your capacity, not necessarily hard work even, smart working. Now, I used to have a joke that I used to say that I don't want first class in my team. Now, I'm proud to say that I've hired a first class person who started out very first class behavior, but ended up being superb. And the reason why I don't hire first class, and this is just part of the real world, is because when the first class students come, they expect that the world is the way they chewed, poured, and passed. Yeah. And they come in and they struggle because they think that it's whatever they memorize is what they're expecting to see. When all I need is somebody who gets things, who I can teach and say, hey, do it this way. Okay, you know how to write. Perfect. That's a good starting point. Now, as you mentioned about hand style, this is how we do our things. Go and run with it. I don't want somebody that will come and ask me 100 questions when they finish. And let me also mention that asking questions is vital. They have to ask questions you can't Google. Come and ask me silly questions. When they finish and they bring the work, I have to do it myself all over again. That's not what I need. I'm looking for people who are proactive. I'm looking for young people who can think on their feet, who can learn, who, for me, the word humility, I find that we overuse it in Ghana. But in some sense, you also need to be humble enough to accept feedback, because feedback is the way we learn in the real world. So if you have all of those qualities where you accept feedback, you are proactive, you think on your feet, you ask the right kind of questions, that for me is paramount. It's bigger than, do you know the agenda setting theory? And to be honest with you, I didn't know that. And that's only because my trajectory was very different from a typical comms person. And I accept that. When I went to grad school and I was learning rhetoric and all of that, I was like, my God, this is just mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. You know, but I do accept that grounding in grad school is what makes me a better comms person. Right. Because the truth is that all of the things that I study, I don't even necessarily think of them in terms of the theory of it. I think it's what has changed me. It's crafted my mindset. And that's what I would say that you need to understand. Yes. So yes, get the grades. Do what you can do. Accept that there's only so much that the system, the educational system can provide. And I think that's what you're talking about, the fact that the system is also limited. Now, if as a student, you come and you want to finish school and go and sit somewhere that your father has gotten for you, by all means, good for you. But in the world that we live in, that's just not enough. So just wanted to do that.
Right, thank you. I'll allow you to come in, but I am a bit curious, Joyce, I'm a bit curious, and why I'm saying this is, you were in GIJ at a time where we didn't even have this facility, and we didn't have the sort of, enthusiasm and the sort of, innovativeness that was going into the curriculum at the time. You came out, and you were doing great. Yes. Here you are saying, making it look as though, unless you go to Ashesi in Ghana, you cannot come. I'm saying that that's the impression I get. Because you said, you compare someone from here and Ashesi. Yeah. And I get the impression that if I'm in Ghana, and of course we made reference to people outside Ghana, and this conversation will benefit them. Yes. They'll be interested in knowing, how did you make it? From GIJ up until where you are now.
Okay, and thank you very much so that I can clear the misconception.
Yes.
So I am not saying that, and if you look around, I mean, there's no one from Manchester here,
Yeah.
obviously.
And
And
I said, I who attended the field.
About
That's just a joke.
so
That's just a
I did that comparison based on values, the values. So I mentioned values,
Okay.
and then I brought Ashai Smith in.
Okay.
So really, and when you mentioned Mr. Joe, I didn't want to mention it again, but I want to say thank you very much. In level 2, he taught us, that was my first introduction to advertising. I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, wow, this is what I want to do. And he explained it. I was not in practice. I didn't know I was 19, 20, really know what it was. But then the way he explained it, and it was, I think then you were practicing somewhere.
Yeah.
Where you, yes, good. So you were not a full-time lecturer. Yeah, you were, but you were going somewhere. So when he comes, sorry, that was in the past.
They will do that and say, they will audit you.
You could see
So many things are
and he actually gave us an assignment to do. We're not practitioners, and the assignment actually exposed us. Now back to the question: what made me different? I had hunger, and when I say hunger, I mean real hunger, not like hunger as in like a company. I was hungry. I was from like those homes, so I was very hungry to make it and make money. Like really, that's really my aim. I wanted to learn, and I'm very curious. Really, like I'm curious about everything. If like Cynthia said, when you're given something and you don't understand, I can one concept comes into my head, and I can reread it. Like what you said today, the agenda theory had changed. I can tell you that I am going to use the whole of this week to understand all the theories around it.
Agenda building.
The point is that, and really, you must be, and in this case, you must be hungry, and hungry for knowledge. Hungry and to change the world. To be, so not just real hunger, but no. So she said that physical hunger too. When you're really, really hungry, it pushes you to go overboard. Then values are key, and your character. When you come into the workplace, and she mentioned humility. I mean, it's not like humility that
Went by pussy and all that.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing.
yes. But even me, I have bought Kose. But after buying the Kose, there is an attitude behind the Kose that will make Cynthia say that, you know what, this is how it is done. I will teach you. But when there is every time you're asking me to buy Kose, they won't teach you. I'll tell you. Anytime, and GIG, I don't know if we still do that. In level 2, we have internship. Before, in level 300. Now, my first internship was handed to me actually by a lecturer, Mr. Bilwadi. And then when I went, I had never used a printer or a scanner before. So I was doing my internship at Parliament House. And when I got there was this huge scanner. Do you know what I did? So everybody left, and I stayed by this scanner. I scanned things, I did things didn't go right, and I stayed like 3 hours to fix it. Do you know what I do? When I will go and stand there in the afternoon, people will come, they don't know how to manage it. And I'll say, can I help you? They say, yeah, give it to me. Then I help them. Can I help you? Yeah, give it to me. I became the most popular girl, on that floor because people could not, the whole thing was, for them it was new, they didn't understand, and they wanted someone who was ready to do it. So when people go in there and then it jumps up, they don't know what to do, I'll just say, don't worry, I'll get it done. And then so people started, where is Joyce? The machine is jumped. And I come in there and do it. And you know what that did for me? After my internship, I got to national, they even wanted to keep me, but I said, no, I want to do in advertising. So I went to an advertising agency, and it was still on a silver platter. My case is that we like the world will offer you, like the university is a world. And for me, it is giving you what the world is, like a snippet of what the world looks like. It is not a full story, right? you would have the chance to learn what you can't hear. But the individual, and I think in my submission I made it clear, the individual is paramount. So GIJ is very good, but build your values as well as an individual.
Great.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that clarity has come, and it puts the responsibility on you as an individual student. That you could have 1,001 students going through the same program, but definitely you are going to have those who stand out. One of the people who stood up from their studies here at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, it was just 5 years ago, Benjamin Alpha. And he has handled the second largest ports and shipping company in the world. So they're offering consultancy services to them in public relations. And obviously that's an example. I mean, he was a teaching assistant for my colleague Paulina Crunchy here. And he's doing big stuff, at his age. And so the burning desire ought to come from you. But Benjamin, when you were, yes, so far, go ahead. Of course. Great.
I didn't have the honor of having this teacher who teach me. Very, very old student, but I'm a proud student.
Great. And I think from all of the praises, I'm happy our two top bosses are here. It means that Galamsey to understand is very important. Very important. Because it gives us an opportunity to abreast ourselves with what industry demands. Very important. Very important. Endorsed.
Yes, endorsed.
So Benjamin, let me come to you, and I'll give the opportunity to our professors who may have a contribution or two. But Benjamin, let me come to you. So I am very much curious about what you wrote in announcing your presence on this panel. And I'm going to pick a portion. You said, a significant portion of my success, if I have been successful at all, is down to what industry taught me more than any classroom assignment. What exactly are you trying to communicate in that particular quote I used?
Good morning, and thank you very much. Thank you to the faculty for the invitation. I first want to render sincere apologies for coming in late. I'm making an entry for an international law competition that demanded my attention this morning. So, apologies to the faculty, the co-panel members, that I couldn't make it in time. But I'm still glad that I was able to make it, at least taking the perspective of an entry-level person within this conversation. I first want to say that from when I saw the topic, or when the invitation was sent to me, I suspected that what is happening around the table, as I have observed, is going to happen. That there's going to be a discussion where academia is defending their space, and practitioners are trying to tell them that it is different out there, and that they are the ones who know the real thing that is ongoing. But I think that the consensus that we are trying to build around this table is that we take GIG as a unit from which most of us have come from which a lot of us practitioners who are talking about what happens out there in practice have come from and have gone on to do well. And that is a testimony to the fact that the training, the knowledge in academia is relevant, as all of us have agreed around this thing. Now, having said that, my problem, and I'll come directly to the point of my article or post that you have referred me to. My problem has been two, and for me, once I make these 2 points, I think that students should be able to take a cue from it, and my discussion here would be done. The first is that the training or the theories and concepts that we get here are very relevant, but they become insufficient in the course of time. That's the first point. Secondly, we do not build skills that gives us the ability to easily connect the theories that we have learned to the practice that we do. And so a lot of entry-level people go out there and they don't know where to start from. And I'm going to give you a typical example. When I was roped in by the company that you referred to do PR services from, already we have done
some work for their sister company here in Ghana. And so they thought that we could replicate that kind of work for them in Anglophone Africa. Now, when I was roped in, I was taken to Monrovia, and I followed them. I mean, I was the PR person on the whole team. It was a very big team, and I was the PR person on the whole team. That's my third or fourth year of practice. So I went there, and our task was to try and understand the cultural nuance and the dynamics that has contributed to the kind of position that the company had. So I went in there, and the first thing I did was to speak to the people I consider very, very important to the company's success and operations and all of that. So the 191 staff in there, I spoke to all of them. I had to request for media footprint, that is all everything that they had published on them. Before I had to speak to senior management, I had to speak to their corporate affairs office in the Netherlands. What was I doing within all of this? I was applying the first step in campaign planning, which is research, trying to gather situational analysis, primary data about it and all of that. But there is we more often than not do not see it. A lot of us, my colleagues, and I've had colleagues of mine who have had jobs, they get back to me and say, where do I start from? What should I do? So it is the ability to see and to be able to connect a lot of the theories that we learn to practice and to be able to live it, that I think is the missing gap, if there's any missing gap at all. Now, to the very specific question that you asked me, I think that it has been discussed previously around the table that what happens in industry increasingly has become a bit different from what we learn in theory, and that even though theories serve as a very sound foundation to our practice, it is the skill that we gain in theory that becomes important over time. Now, I learned that there is something called evaluation, right? But learning evaluation and learning that you have to use surveys and all of that in and of themselves does not take you anywhere. You should be able to show through these things that you are giving return on investment to clients. And that's actually one of our problems. When you go out there, the marketing people are able to tell you what they do, what they bring in. But PR students struggle. When management asks them, so what you do in corporate is saying, how does it bring in money? Bottom line. They struggle to justify it. So I knew of evaluation and all of that, but I had to learn how to do a proper press coverage report to show to clients. Press coverage report that is not top management member who is very busy can look at it and have a good appreciation of the coverage that the campaign has offered and all of that. So that's what I mean when I say that a lot of the things, because nobody taught us press coverage reports. The closest we came is evaluation to show that, and all of that. But that is very crucial. Whatever you do, you have to show, especially if the engagement is with the media and all of that. Right. So I think my initial comment would be that yes, academia's role is to try and bring around this knowledge to the table and share and distribute and impart into us and all of that. But there's also the skills building that I think that if they incorporate as part of the training would be so essential to the next generation of practitioners that we are raising, because out there is the soft skill that matters. So yes, theory foundation, but if the PhD student is able to step out there and is able to offer a special skill. For my first role that I got, there was a very senior practitioner at ODU who was retired and wanted to start a PR agency in Ghana. And there was one question that she asked me. She says, you have been recommended. And by the way, at the risk of sounding boastful, all 6 clients or partners that I've worked with or jobs I've worked on, none of them have requested my certificate. I've I've never gone for a job interview before. That is because all of these jobs come from recommendations, and employers are concerned about what you can do more than whether you are a student of GIJ and whether you went to the best communication. So she asked me, what can you do? I told her I can write. Yes, that's the skill that I was confident about that. And she asked me to send a portfolio of the best things I had written before. At the time when we were having that conversation, I had already, written press statement before because I was involved in student leadership, community service, and all of these things that a lot of our colleagues felt that, we were wasting our time, like we were all over the place and all that. Those things that is what built us up, that gave us the connection, the exposure, the confidence. So, I remember going to take a non-paying role at the All Africa Student Union Congress in 2016 as a media liaison officer. What I did was to write the communique for the Congress, what we came out with, and it took me a lot of research and all. But I compiled all of these things, sent to the woman. The woman called me the next day, went to have a conversation. She was just asking me, throwing scenarios at me. And by the way, that's where the theory came in. So throwing scenarios at me. So if this thing happened, what are you going to do? I have never practiced before, but I read a few cases, a few PR cases, and how they were dealt with. So, I recited some of these processes to her, told her how we were going to go about it. And based on the portfolio I had shown her, and the knowledge and theory I was displaying, she hired me. So, they are complementary, but our emphasis should be more on the skills, and that would be my initial comment.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Yes, so I'll give an opportunity to the professor himself, so we start from the rector, and then we'll come to the deputy rector. Who else? I think I agree. So we start from the deputy Professor Eric Mensa.
Thank you. I think this is quite exciting to have all of you here, especially knowing very well that quite a number of our panelists are alumni of our great institution.
But all of us,
let's give them a clap. I think it's one of the wonderful things we are doing this academic year. Yeah. And I would want to congratulate PR and marketing faculty for this. I know my boss, chairman, will make his own addition to what he's saying, but let me quickly do this. And as you all speak, a lot of things are coming to the fore. And I have permitted 4 quick issues to talk about. The first one is this constant refrain of industry practitioners. Always you hear it, it's not even about you. You hear it in the media saying that, oh, the universities are not even training the right people. When they come, they can't do anything. And I asked myself, these industry players, where were they trained? In the schools. They were trained in Ghanaian institutions, but some way, somehow, when they are there, there's a way they elevate themselves and distance themselves from the universities and even question the capacity of our institutions. The issue is that, including us as academics, not practitioners, we all felt that inadequacy when we were in school. Yes. And the fact that our schools don't provide, they don't provide that. But some way, somehow, you find yourself in an international institution, like the way Noah talked about experience in Leeds. I know she studied in the US, I don't know about the others and all of that. But they all go out there and they do very well. From our institution that sometimes we condemn and all of that. So the question is that, I think that we should also recognize where our institutions are. They are in so-called third world countries. And if you look at the so-called top universities where they are in very big economies where industry put a lot of money into the universities for them to do research. And I was saying something that I don't know whether we took notice of, that in terms of what we as researchers and academics are given in terms of resources that are given. Sometimes they're so limited, and sometimes if you see what people in our shares have, you may tend to think, oh, we don't have anything, but you ask yourself, how much school fee do we pay a semester? For over $4,000. And that in itself would allow a certain amount of resources for the students. Some way, somehow, create a very special atmosphere that allow those values that you talked about to be given more easily. We are in a place where we have to survive. But it's so beautiful that all of you came from an institution like GIG and making a lot of impact. The second point, one of the things that I've learned from your responses is the issue about the individual and how hungry and serious this person is. And I can say you all have those qualities. You see, sometimes we assume that everybody who went to Harvard was successful. It's not true. We only get to hear about the successes of those who are already successful. So those who were never successful are in the dark. And we don't know their story and where they ended. The point is that here we are in Ghana. How many universities are producing graduates onto the job market? How many industries are in Ghana, and how many students can or graduates can the government employ? So for you to survive out there, it calls about your own personal ambition and the hunger and quote which you talked about. How many people are academics in Ghana? And I will say that my mate, and I suspect Noah's mates or Paul's mates, not all of them became lecturers. It's always those who want to go the extra mile, who will have those skills and do all the industry. She talked about how she quickly went to learn about the scam. Others who just found that they don't want to do, people who said they don't want to see or they don't want to do anything. And I find it quite awful that how can you be a graduate and you stay at home for so long and never get employed? Because you can walk into any organization and say, I don't really want salary, I just want to come and help.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to do that.
I tell you, if you do that for a few months, they themselves, when the door is open for recruitment, say, this one maybe has been happening, look at the way to do. Will they leave you and go and employ another person? No! But people want, this is my certificate. An uncle, my father should go and speak to this person so that I get employment. But he or she is not showing himself out there to prove his skill. Is it papacy? How does he talk about the fact that when he went for the interview, even though he had his certificates at the base, but they looked at his profile, what he had already done. Production. I don't think every one of his mates was doing the same. So I think that this brings to the fore that the individual needs to work hard. And I'm not going to talk about the fact that a number of our students, not necessarily the students gathered in here, don't want to go beyond they just want marks and parts. But if you are advertising students, you're a experience student, and you don't want to practice what you are learning, and you just want to finish it, just hold your certificate and say that I read PR to employ me. No employer is going to do that. So in all spheres, the individual's ambition that this is what I'm learning, I'm going to be the best of this and go out there and change the world. That is when you get doors open for you. Last but not least, let me make this point. Last month, I had an opportunity to be in a conference in the US, and I was amazed about the number of Ghanaian students who have GIG, UCC, University of Ghana, who are doing so well. And I asked myself, sometimes we bastardize our own institution, but these people have emerged from our so-called poor institution, and they are ruling in a foreign land, so far as communication is concerned. So all is not lost. I said last, but let me make this. So, to Benjamin, you said something I find it quite interesting about what you said was your experience and how they spoke for you in terms of your production. Look, sometimes we also forget that our experience in the university is not all about the teaching and learning. Joining associations. Do you know that the university is providing you that space for that total training? So sometimes all these things you are doing outside your coursework, don't think it is outside your education.
Yeah.
It is part of it.
Yes.
The needs you have, the group work, these students, it's all part of that total education. So you produce something that attracts you to your employers. That is a production of your total experience. So I want to say that we shouldn't discount any aspect of our education. No. Whatever we experience, both in doing assignments, both in communicating with our friends, both in working together and networking, are critical tools that are needed by the employers. But I will say that if we're able to embrace all these things and do our best in whatever we put our hands to do, because sometimes some of our students look at us and say, people are probably bookworms, that's why you are professors. I have always been a student politician, and I have never seen that being successful out there is just being a pure script. You have to do all, you have to know how to do. You learn public speaking, you learn to work on time, you learn to negotiate. All these things happen with your mates. And I guess this is a great opportunity, and we should do well and continue with this program next and many years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think,
sorry, my boss.
Okay, so on the program, I have the exclusive remarks by the rector. So I am not going to say too many things now. But I wanted to react to what Benjamin said first of all. But before that even, let me put it on record. I'm a product of the University of Ghana School of Communication Skills. So I'm a good company.
I am actually a product of GIJ, so
I'm also very proud to be the rector of this institution. Even before I became rector, I dealt with GIJ. So I'm very happy to straddle both institutions and to champion the cause of both institutions. But GIJ next. So thank you all. I'm very happy that we are all of us here. All of you are products of GIJ. Yeah. So get that out of the way. Benjamin, I wanted to say this. What happens within academia? And by the way, I'm sitting here thinking, we seem to forget that academia is actually an industry on its own.
Yeah.
When I was in Australia, the academic sector, higher education sector in Australia was the second highest foreign exchange earner for the Victorian economy, and for the nation as a whole, the third foreign exchange earner. So academia is an industry on its own. And some of these things that you talk about happen there as well. So on the interview front, we have, and I mean, as chair of the appointments and promotions committee, when we have interviews, we talk to people. We look at what they bring. It is after all of that, before we say, okay, now you told us in your application that you have a certificate as well. So let's see it. So wherever you go, it is actually about what you have to offer, not your certificate. The certificate is just the confirmation that you have had some kind of academic training. And whichever way you look at it, your academic training, whether you acknowledge it or whether you realize it, it is there in the background all the time. You would never come to any communication or any situation as what the Latin people say, tabula rasa, as a clean state. No. Your understanding, your interpretation of everything within the work setting is based on something that you know already. So this divide or seeming divide between academia and industry, I think is really just perhaps for academic and academic purposes. But really, there shouldn't be. I have a few more things to say, but not now. I will wait until I have my closing points.
We'll do the last round of discussions and then we are done. And this time we are looking at the way forward. I mean, one of the things I love to do when I'm steering any such conversation is we don't just turn it into talks only. What is the way forward? So the way forward, and I want all of us to address that, is how then do we recommend to each other, both academics and practitioners, what are we recommending to each other? Because I've not made mention of the fact that in industry there should be teaching and learning as well, ongoing, right? And if I'm a practitioner, shouldn't I be worried that I've been practicing perhaps in the same industry for about 20 years, and I'm not even going back to school to understand what are some of the new things happening in the research world? And academics, how do we, and practitioners, how do we also suggest, or what do we suggest to academics so we can continue to cook students that are industry ready students? So I'll start off that conversation from you, Albert, and then I'll roll it over as we go.
I realize that I'm the only outlier on this panel.
Who didn't go to GIG?
Oh, I didn't go to GIG. I went to KNUST.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that makes
You and I are
We have company.
yeah.
Right.
But I'm very happy to be here.
I'm going to give you two scenarios, in fact, two stories of two students of mine, former students of mine, not here, but I taught elsewhere. One of them called me when she was doing her national service, that I think civil aviation, that if her boss calls me and asks whether she was my student, I should deny it. Because, and her reason was that she's been asked to do a number of things which she couldn't. And so the boss was wondering what she was taught in school. And so he asked for my number, and she said she didn't know. So she was giving me a heads up in case that happens. Now, another also called me. In fact, that lady was always upset. She was one of those who was always upset with me because I was giving them case studies, things to handle, and so on and so forth. And they felt like I was frying their brains, thanking me profusely that I didn't listen to her. Because when she was doing her service, something happened, a crisis occurred. And based on what I had taken them through, she applied that. Even though there were others there, they couldn't do it. And because of that, she was promoted as a full-time staff. And whenever the PR manager wasn't around, she deputized. So you see the contrast. So when I hear sometimes people say that academia doesn't teach you anything, or we learn more from industry than academia, sometimes I find it a problem. Because then why do we continue to go to school? Why do we continue to write? Why do we continue to develop concepts? You see, the question sometimes I ask myself, the kind of things that even academics develop, do industry even read it? Do they have a look at it? Is it? It may surprise you that some of the things that you're even talking about, or things are changing, it may already have been produced, but you may not know. Some of those on the panel know. I've interviewed some of them before, based on some of my research. Is it? So, but when we finish, we put these things out there. Do they read it? That is the question. Once you're able to read it, then you can tell that, okay, I agree with this or I don't agree with this. And if we talk about the excellence theory, for example, that we've all been talking about, a lot of time you realize that within the African context, it doesn't fully work because there are certain factors that mitigate its full implementation. And for academics, we only determine this through the kind of research that we do and then make recommendations. the question then is, do practitioners even know about this? If they don't, then as academics, are we also making it visible?
Yeah, available enough.
Exactly. Is it
Open access.
very important? That's open. Are we making it visible? Now, I've sent a couple of my works to some of those that I interviewed. In terms of, I've done a number of frameworks for peer practice in Ghana, in Africa. Currently, I'm working on another one for a framework for institutions of higher education in Africa. And that was based on interviews that I had with some peer practitioners in universities in Africa. The question is, can it be implemented? Again, what we also need to understand is that for sometimes PR to be practiced effectively, it also depends on the understanding that management of these, some of these organizations have about the concept.
Are they oriented enough?
Are they oriented enough? And as practitioners who come out of academia, what are we doing to even show our value? I think you talked about evaluation.
Yeah.
And as you know, evaluation is something that I do all the time. I interview practitioners all the time regarding evaluation. And if it's one thing, and it's not just Ghana, worldwide, evaluation is more talked about than actually practiced. It is not just Ghana. It's actually more, people know its importance, but in terms of practice, it's hardly ever done.
Right.
But it's something that we should. So, in order to be able to bridge that gap, it's important for academics and professionals to work together. And how do we do that? Once we get that information, we need that information from practitioners. How do they do this? Based on what they've learned, what are the differences? Based on that, what can we also produce? But I must say that getting practitioners to work with you in Ghana is extremely difficult. It is. For some of them, they are very helpful. But for most, we are busy. Getting them to spend 20, 30 minutes for interview or spend about 10, 15 to fill a questionnaire, it's extremely difficult. I remember one day I asked a practitioner who told me he was busy, that supposing I was a journalist and I come to you that, I am doing a documentary or I'm writing a feature regarding CSR or any of your, and I want to interview for that, will you tell me that you are busy? He couldn't answer. You see, so the thing is, we think that a lot of times practitioners think that, what's the benefit of granting? I have so many things to do. It will not benefit me because I need to deliver.
Right.
But if academia go, because what we find is what we teach the students.
Yeah.
But if we are to get that, we need that cooperation from them.
Right.
And we also need to be able to, whatever we find, we also need to be able to make it accessible to them. As to whether they read it or not, that is another matter. So that is what I can say.
Thank you so much, Bossman. Albert, I beg your pardon. And I want to say that
But he's Bossman.
Yeah, he's a Bossman. I want to say that so for example, we are currently working on a project that talks about internal communication in organizations in times of crisis. And we have interviewed practitioners on how, because a lot of the time when you look at crisis, you're looking at how the organization face the crisis outside and not from the organization internal perspective. So once we do that, we'll put it in a research, and that is what we'll teach. So the next time that paper is published, Bossman and I are going to class to teach. And those are the things we teach the students, right? And so I think we would have to emphasize your availability to grant us some of these interviews. And that will be one of our suggestions.
And it will be good that when that is done, because I'm big now on internal forms, then we invite someone from industry, because I think that that's also what is lacking, so that we would hear what is being discussed. And then they would also hear from us how relevant that is when they come into the
So that should just take your suggestions away from them. So suggestions to the academy.
Okay, all right then. So, before I came here, I did a little bit of research, right? Now, I asked some students who are still here, what are some of the theories that they are being taught? And actually, the agenda setting theory came, normative theory, and gatekeeping and priming. And then I said, are they still relevant? He said, oh, they look too archaic, right? No, I am not saying this. I can mention the person's name. Then I asked, what are some of the things that you would want to see that are being taught? And I'll mention them. So these, and the person sampled quite a number of people. So email marketing, and that is true because today, and no, I'm not saying that's what they said. And when I looked at what has been said, I think that we had this question, and I said, now this will be content creation or copywriting rather. So once this is sent to me, in industry, as you said, and when usually I will have time, but there are people, and when it comes to industry, and for those of us who have been in industry, you realize that the PR department usually sometimes is the smallest, and there are so many things you're supposed to be dealing with. Some people may not know how to manage it, so they're always busy. So once you come in with something that is lengthy for them to read, it becomes an issue. So really, copywriting is one of the things, because now you have shorter attention span. You want to be able to get the thing to the person to read. I want to be able to glance through this, take some words, and already in my mind, I know what's happening. All right. Then there's also digital marketing and influencer management. So now you realize that for PR, and this is coming from the students, so I'm giving you back what you want to know. So, and for industry, right now as PR practitioners, we are supposed to be managing the influencers we are using to get our messages across. Because it is no more the media as we know it, no more the traditional media, but it is a new media. And even within the new media, there's even new media, which is influencers. And it's a big thing because we have influencers, but we even don't know how do we manage them, because a media house can give you what we call the transcript. Is it a transcript? That is, they can give you the sheet. Yes, but for the influencer, what are they? How are you able to measure the ROI? Maybe mentions and what does it mean? All right. And then the other one I'll talk about is infographics management. You know, and it comes back to you know, you said something about PowerPoint presentation, and it's key. And I remember someone told me that the power is in the point. That is why it is called PowerPoint. But you have a PowerPoint, and the whole thing is text. So you're presenting and you're even reading. And now we even have infographics. You realize that attention spans are very short. So you want to give someone the information in graphics. Are you going to wait for the graphic designer to come and do it? There's so many templates. Are you able to use it? And this is what students are saying. Now, based on really what I feel, or I think based on the discussion that we've had, I think it will be good that once we have the researches done, we get the industry to come in. Because for us, it is not about the theories. Usually, over time, as Benjamin said, over time, after 2 years, you no more think about any theory. It is really what is coming at you and how someone else had done it somewhere, and you're reading magazine, you read Forbes, you have Forbes on the go, and you check what is happening, and all the time. So it's no more about the theories until someone from school, and this is where I think that we would want to get more from the students. What the school can do is to start putting these theories into their minds. When they come to us, we want to see those new things. We want them to do something, and we say, but what is that? Yeah. Then they teach us and say, this is a new way. Oh, okay. And this is even how it is called. And that's what, as industry, we're expecting. We know that they are young, they are new, and we have been there before. But at least we're expecting, you know, something from them. Then, when it comes to research, and it is good. I know some of my colleagues who actually, their PR department, they have money for research into the universities. They are done. However, it will be equally good that industry, academia looks at what is really the issue. So maybe because of the economic crisis we're going through, there's a lot of agitations, so there will be a lot of crisis management. Can the institution come up and say, we are realizing that more and more how you industry are managing crisis is not really how you, like you fringe when you see how we're all over the place. So you come up and say, we want to take you through, or these are the new ways of doing things, so that you don't sit there and wait for us to come and give you the money, but you are selling to us solutions. And that's why I would also want to say there should be a connection. You know, when you tell me to fill in a survey, and I'm so busy, and it looks long, and I don't see where it fits in for me, I would not want to give you my time. I'm not saying me, but I'm just generalizing. We don't want to give the time. Then one more thing, and I remember this so well, which is one of the things that I will forever remember for GIG. Our last week of lectures in GIG, and I don't know whether, since you were there, whether it was planned. Every lecturer did not teach the subject. All they were telling us were life skills. I don't know, and I remember it so well because it was strange for me that it was strange because there was this lecturer. He's very, very wild. And for whatever reason, like that day, you know, we know all the lecturers who are nice, but we know the wild ones. And he was so calm, and he gave us life skills, like how to talk, how to manage yourself, how to be hopeful, how to be positive, and it stuck with me. I remember it's 11 years later, I'm still saying. I don't know if it's still happening, but if it is not, this is something that I think that the school can do. And so it helped us to realize that we're going, like you're leaving school. And really, when you're leaving school, it's not even today that there are others that are working, and then we were very young. We were afraid of what is, you know, out of the world. And someone who had seen it is actually telling me, and that's great. And it's one of the recommendations I think that as an institution we can continue.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Let me say, this particular event you're seeing here with its attendance, designs, the production and all of that, was spearheaded by our students, and it is a part of the course they are doing, which is event management. So instead of coming to tell them how event is managed, we are getting them to manage the events themselves. And I would want to take this opportunity to say, let's give them a round of applause. That's it. So, before I come to another academic, Papacy, what will be your suggestion to the academy?
On the way forward, I'm a very positive person. So I started saying that Mr. Joe was doing something right when I was in GIJ, where they bring guest lecturers who are practitioners. So I recall very well, we went to back first. I recall very well. They were teaching us, we learned about cartridges in school, printers and their parts. We went to the field to see how it's done. I know yourself and Paulina and a few of the lecturers call on us from time to time to come to the classroom. And I think until we make that a conscious part of our curriculum, we won't change the narrative. We'll come here next year and still talk about the gap, and students will feel, because I've already said, if you rely solely on the time you use in GIJ, you can't write much, you can't learn a lot about presentations. There's very little you can do on the GIJ campus. But if practitioners from time to time come to school to say, we want to give you our time, we want to hear your presentations, we want to sit through, guide you on how to, it's not always about coming to tell you that, I want to give you a 3/4. We should let people understand how things are done, because I didn't get to understand your process just by finishing school. It took me over 8 years to get to where I am. So if I sit in your class almost every semester, and then no matter the course, whether it's internal comms or crisis management, I can critique your work, then we are investing in making sure that the professionals that we are churning out are in the right frame of work, and when they come out, they can do positive work. Until we do that, so maybe all of us over here can pledge to say that for the next hundreds of years, we would be available anytime you call us, we'll come and impact knowledge into students. Until we do that, we forget about it.
Thank you. So I'll come back to you, Ike, and then I'll go to Abna. So Ike, what would be your suggestion? And of course, you are a middle player, been in industry.
Yes, I was going to say that. So I'll try to wear my practitioner's cap, and I know I've now punched you for some of the things I'm going to say. I've always been doing that to ourselves, so I'm happy. First of all, I come back to the student fund, and it's something I love. My common deal, I come on the students. That's so true. And last Saturday, when I was teaching my class, I told them that, I forgot something. When I was here, GI as a student, when we closed from lectures, you see us like quote-unquote bees. We walk from the school to the junction to go and take truck walk. Yes. You see all of us. Yes. I say I'm not bad. We are all working. Yes. That's why some of us, if we talk and you see somebody create relationships, create connections, know people. But now, after Uber, everybody is taking Uber. So flex life, soft life. So I come with the amount for. That is why I disagree with my good friend there, who says that at a certain stage in life, theory will need you do not think about theory. And I humbly disagree. Because I come to work, you will never forget theory. Because you want and then let me say this, because you really want to create your relevance. When I came to GIG, I come coming from a home where I've lost my mother, my father was retired, we are 9 siblings. I have younger people, I have to go and then fight for them. So I sat in the class, Kwesikotia, David Newton, talking to us, and they're talking, I said, it's not that just about our culture. How do I make the money? Thank you. And I told Prof, I like money. Why can I use what we are giving me to create relevance for myself, for my 7 other brothers, and for my community around me? So I'm looking at that. And we are not doing that. We are sitting down there, chasing, still complain. I have B and they will C+. That is the focus. I have A and they are testing. Pitch yourself. And somebody said that Mr. Dale is teaching you advertising, a powerful talking journalism is teaching you the inverted comment, pyramid structure, and all that. How are you yourself making those things relevant to industry so that you become? I say that I put myself up for SRC presidency here at DIG. And I remember Kosikutia said that when I go over school or is he a student of DIG? Because they didn't know me. Because after lecture, I am gone. By the first semester, end of my first semester here studies at DIG, I was an employee of TV3. Hello? I thought you were going to just do something. You know how I got my job at TV3? I walked into TV3 issue, I talked to Gideon Aike, I talked to him, and I said, I think I can do what you are doing. Then he said, show us, this young man, what can you do? And I said, Ebo also gave us an assignment to produce a news story. This is what I wrote. Then Gideon read it, and I said, we are sent to me and back. He said, yes, I need it. He gave me a job there and then. So after first semester, I have worked for TV3 ever since I graduated from GIG because I am creating my relevance every day. Have I stopped as an academician? No. Every day I am creating my, even now, I'm creating my relevance. I studied, I'm a student of ACMP, Association of Change Management Professionals. I decided to pick on something this year. Why can I study? It's a change management. Good. Because PR in change management, So I wanted to be a professional in the space. I registered and I'm studying. And I've done. So I volunteered. That's what I was saying. I was going to also wear the practitioner's card. But, and I said this in the session, Prof, can it also be an opportunity where academicians, those who've never had, like, quote unquote, respectfully, practical taste with industry, have, as we are urging our students to get some opportunities to go for encouragement and internship, can there also be an opportunity? So in order for that perceived, which I don't believe to be close, can we also make ourselves relevant to the industry? That we can also volunteer. Okay, I teach journalism, and graphic is doing so well. Although we interview them, that's what when I pick this argument, it was most of them that are interviewing them. But can we also, after we have done our research and the findings there, can we go to graphic communications news editor? Can we go to Pollard Holland. And then come to you and I said that, yes, these are new findings are found in excellence theory. This is what I think you should. So I don't know, I'm just asking, yes. Can you do that? That's a challenge, yes. That's a challenge I want to throw to those of us, so that you could hear the students to, should I say, they are also evaluators on their own. So when they appear before them, especially those of us who are teaching in the graduate school, when they appear before them, they have worked for 10 years, 15 years, they are just in for the degree. So if you also approach them with so much theory, excellence theory, resource-based, this, you are doing the right thing, your job as an academic, but they seem to be a bit boring. They think, it is good. So I think that how we can also create, how we can create the gap is that probably academicians should also make themselves more available to industry, just like you said. But the students, right, everything is very true.
Thank you, Ike, and yeah, please do that. Let me add that there is a problem I have identified in the academy, which is that, yes, of course, do all of the research, do the findings, put them together, but the post-research advocacy is usually lost on us. And I think that it is a challenge to all of us in this room, and of course, those who joined us live on our Facebook platform. It is a challenge to all of us where we take up the post-research advocacy. If we found something that is crucial, we shouldn't just hide it. We were in a conference, we were in a training with all the public relations officers of the MPAs, the ministries, the departments and agencies, and GIG spearheaded that. A lot of them came back to tell us that, look, the discussions we had are playing out today in some of the things they do, and they are happy that we've come to have those discussions with them. And so I think the post-research advocacy is another step we should be taking on this. Let me come to you so far. Right, so what will be your suggestion to the academy?
Right, thank you very much. You seem to have taken some of the words out of my mouth. Because when Dr. Bosman was talking, I wrote down here, information sharing. You have done a research. There are recommendations for industry players. How difficult is it to call us into a classroom somewhere? Look, guys, after that event, after that conversation with you, this is what I found out. I know that you are practicing this and that, and this is what we are recommending. I think people will be ready to listen and know what is happening so that we bridge that gap. The other thing I said is that turning theories, some of it, into proposals, GIG, to come up with proposals and send to some institutions. As I said to you, last year or two, my organization, because we are into environmental sanitation, big on environmental sanitation, my boss agreed and gave a seed fund of 5 million Ghana cedis for academia to do research into environmental sanitation. That is how we are reaching out. Now, Legon approached us and said, look, we want some of our people to come and do internship with you. And it's something we are going to do. I had an individual, somebody I'm working with, approach me and said, look, I want my daughter to come and study. So far, you're doing so well. And I said, fine, let her come. But note that at the time, and I still until it is such an MOU sign, it doesn't happen. We are not accepting internships because most of the times when they come, you have to pay something. And I said, I am happy for this person to understand me, but note that this person will not receive anything because it is not the office that is organizing. I am happy for somebody to understand. So today the person hasn't come. But I have another person who called and said, oh, madam, I've heard so much about you. I want to come and understand you. So I said, why not come? And Dr. Abna, she's one of your girls. And she walks in, and every day she's there. Sometimes she comes and says, madam, today you haven't given me anything. I said, don't worry, I want you to observe. I want you to go to the net. Do an audit of my website. Do this, do that. She's learning. And then she comes and says, oh, there's this job that says this. I want to go. I said, look, this is what you need. Go. She goes and she comes back and she said, no, I don't like it. Now, I'm recommending her for another organization. Why? Because we are not ready for employment yet. But because I know she has learned, I'm ready to recommend her to other places. Please. Dr. Anna said something about people not being driven. And it boils down to hunger. You know, in this world, it's not everything that will be handed over to you. Sometimes you have to take it. Make it happen. You will have to make it happen. I remember my own story. When I completed GID, I was in the Malta region, home, practicing journalism. And then I heard that something had come, they are calling computer. There is MS-DOS. Where are the MS-DOS?
Yeah. Black and white screen.
Exactly. MS-DOS, Excel, CorelDRAW. I went to learn and nobody paid for me. I had to find money, go and learn it by myself. And then a time came, British High Commission said they were looking for somebody to do websites. And I said, which one is that? Let me go and learn it. And then I had done some work for them. I was myself, and I did a story. And this girl is so fearless. You know, I was just walking my somewhere, quiet. You know, they invited me. I go for this interview, and I get a job. I had no experience whatsoever in website development, but I had to learn it and make myself relevant. When I got to that office, the website had not started. I was sitting in the office, and I was like, I'm not going to sit here just like that. And then they called me and said, we don't know that the training hasn't started yet, so hold on. Then I see that cars are coming into the High Commission. Some of them, they are blocking them, others they are not. Then I said, no, why don't we create a situation where we know which cars belong to the High Commission people and which one belongs to the outsiders? And let's do a card and put in our cars and show. And they said, oh, do it for us. Then I was like, hey, do it for us. And I remembered I had done CorelDRAW. Only to realize that my machine in the office didn't have a CorelDRAW. So how am I going to do it? I sat down thinking, and I said, you can even use web art in Word to design this. And till today, they're using it. How? Because I didn't want to sit down and wait for people to have. If you want people to instruct you on what to do, you always do that. And there's something I tell the youth always. You can, no, it is said that nobody is indispensable. But trust me, you can make yourself irreplaceable. Even at GID, you'll be here. By the time you're leaving, the school will be thinking about you. What do you do for yourself? I think that. And the other thing is critical thinking. Critical thinking. Critical thinking. I don't know if it is a course we should teach. Or people should learn for themselves.
It's a course. Yes, of course.
Thank you very much.
It's a
Please, take it personal. Take it very personal. And I'm talking about people who know, you can think critically when you know what you're talking about. Yes. Let's learn and let's question, let's interrogate issues. Until we get to that level, come to us, walk to us, ask us, why are you doing this and not doing that? We were taught in school that this can be done like this. And I will tell you, well, when you come to Josport, the situation is different. I walk into my office one day and my boss is like, Sophia, I think you are very good at this corporate communications thing here, but trust me, this is not corporate communication. This is political corporate. You have to know your content. But please, let's work together. Let's work together. Academia, share your findings with us and reach out to industry, and let's find ways and means of, as a school, going out to the industry people and say that, look, I like the MMDAs. There are other government institutions. We know you have your PR people, but these are things you can do to help you. And don't make it a business venture, but don't lose out on the profits that will come out of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think that my interest is in the 5 million Ghana Cedi research grants. And it tells you, if you have companies like this that are prepared to invest in research, it should tell you the future of academia. We are grateful, and I'm particularly grateful to know this. There are some ongoing partnerships with GIJ and some other institutions, and of course we are doing something with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example. And I must admit that there is a full plan in place to execute, come to you, get some of these collaborations. So a lot is changing in GIG, and that is
Wonderful.
So we're almost done. I have 3 more, and then we are done. So I'll come back to you.
Well, just before you continue, I know we are all enjoying ourselves. Fantastic. We have on our list the CEO of the Ghana Library Authority as well here. So we great to acknowledge the presence as well. Fantastic. I'm sure we want to pass a comment or two before we continue. And then also I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our own Dean of the Faculty of Communication Studies. I believe Dr. Fusu is around to as well. Great experience to support us as well. Fantastic. So let's hear something quickly from the CEO, then we will definitely wrap up soon for our tea break. Yes.
Thank you very much. Maybe starting on existing protocols, I'll just make some few remarks. I think I've heard a few comments on the fact that academia and industry must have a way of communicating so that at least research work that is being done by the academia can be accessible to industry. And as a library authority, of course, our work is to be able to connect citizens to knowledge resources. So how do you make sure that there is this link established so that industry can also benefit from what is happening in academia? I know that there are a lot of platforms that people in the academia industry publish their works, but how accessible are these platforms also those in the industry? And I think it's a challenge to the libraries, both GIG libraries and maybe the Library Authority and other academic libraries to be able to work together to be able to make sure that this is made possible. If you look at the New Patriotic Party's manifesto, there is the mention of the establishment of the Ghana Knowledge and Skills Bank, which is supposed to be a platform that will allow for content like this to be shared and accessible also for those in the industry. And I'm hoping that the Ministry of Education will work with the academic sector to be able to make sure that this platform becomes available and, of course, accessible to the students. Ghana Library Authority have a collaboration with the Commonwealth of Learning, where we are leveraging on MOOCs platform, massive open online course platforms. That you can go on these platforms and take some of these online courses for free. If you go on EDX, Coursera, or Udemy, you might have to pay for some of them. But at Library Authority, we have this scholarship in place. So if you go to library.org.gh, you will have the opportunity to be able to access some of these courses that are possibly not taught in your school. And my sister shared with you some of the courses that she took, which have become relevant to the current work that she performed for a company. And I believe you should take advantage of also this. Our libraries, our static libraries, are now very much more conducive for learning. So if the library here is full and you want some more space to study, we just open a new one at Adenta. So those of you in that include the Fafaha area, you can always go there and make use of the space. Accra Central Library also is very much conducive now. You can go there. Hopefully by December we are opening the airport library, so that we can have these 3 central libraries in the city for the youth. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Now. Thank you so much. So Noah, yes, I think we can do your
right. Great. So I'll take your very last comments.
Yes, and my comment is 2-in-1: targets academia and targets industry. We've spoken about sharing knowledge that is produced by the academia. I think that is very important when we conduct research to really pay attention to dissemination, engagement fora, create sessions where industry people meet with the knowledge that you have produced. Besides dissemination fora, there's something I particularly take interest in doing when I publish any research. And academia, when we talk about publishing any research, we mean in an academic journal. The target is other scholars like ourselves. It's not for you, the industry. We write like this in those journals. Yes. But I do something beyond publishing my papers in an academic journal. I do policy briefs, I do industry briefs.
Okay.
And the industry briefs target the people in industry. So depending on the research I've done, if it answers a certain question that a practitioner has, I do an industry brief and circulate it with my network. I'll give you an example. So when COVID came, I conducted a small survey on how Ghanaians expected brands to talk to them in the heat of the pandemic, because everybody was trying to survive, and you as a brand still needed to advertise, but you don't want to advertise and be a pain on some part of my body, So I wanted to see, how do Ghanaians expect brands to still talk to them during this period and not be annoying? My findings when I finished, I did an industry brief, and I asked a question about what your audience expects you to be saying during the COVID. And I shared that with the practitioners within my network. Sometimes it's also about growing our network. The reason you've not seen those industry briefs are because I don't have relationships with you. So sometimes there are people in academia, we should also expand our network so that when we produce some of these industry targeted documents, the people in industry will have the opportunity to be able to consume them. I don't talk very big English in my industry briefs because the audience for the industry brief doesn't need big English. They just need answers to their questions.
Yeah, thank you. I'll come to you, Cynthia, and then you are fine. Cynthia.
Okay, great. So, in listening to everyone, I started making some notes, and I realized that the notes I've made are pretty much a summary of this discussion. So allow me to be academic here. So first thing I want to say is, I want to commend GIG, because as I was writing this, I said to myself, well, looks like GIG is ticking the boxes, right? So here are three things, three perspectives. The first thing I realized is the word proactivity. In everything we've spoken about, the word proactivity is, I think, it's overall. It's overarching. Every comment that the panelists have made, whether from academia or from industry, so-called industry, it's been about proactivity. Now, three prongs of that proactivity. The first one being proactivity from academia, proactivity from what we are calling industry today, and proactivity from students, right? So proactivity from academia, we talked about several things. So for instance, we talked about involving practitioners in practical-based curriculum building. In the actual, what are you teaching the students? Is it relevant at the end of the day? Is it useful? Is it outmoded or not? I think that that's key. Then secondly, foster interactions and engagement with practitioners and associations and industries. And you see what I'm saying? They're taking all the boxes. So that also being vital in terms of proactivity from academia. Then also giving exposure to internships, attachments, interactions like this. Mentorship, all of that. Ticking the boxes very well. Do more galamsey. I love that part. When you were talking about it in my head, I was like, this is so amazing. Do more galamsey. And I just want to mention that I think that, just that exposure, and forgive me for being so direct about this, but I think that exposure, that real world exposure, would really change the perspectives that academicians bring to the classroom.
Cynthia, please, before, especially our viewers who are viewing us online, think that galamsey is illegal. When you talk about galamsey in academia, it means going out there to do extra job, other than what you did. Yes, community service. The side hustle, that's what we call galamsey.
So industry-based side hustle. And I thought that was so important because you are fantastic at what you do, being theorists. You are fantastic at shaping the minds of young people. But you do need that refresher, that, how does this reflect in the real world, that you can bring back to the classroom. And I just wanted to add to what Sophia said. And I think that there is an opportunity for an institution like GIJ to have an agency. Decide that we are going to have an actual agency, a mini corporate business that will lend its services to industry So the same way we have agencies that go and pitch for a job, that say, I can turn your brand around, I can do this, I can brand build, I can create awareness in the specific spaces that you need, I can set agendas for you. GRJ should have an agency of some sort that you say, we are also going out to pitch with the OMOs, to pitch with the Global Media Alliances. So they go there, they are surprised, they are coming in for the pitch meeting, they come and they see you sitting there and say, what's wrong? What are you doing here? But that's vital, and if the job comes in, you can even outsource some of the aspects of the jobs to students to support. I think that is also an opportunity there. And then lastly, and this is the proactive, this program, academia. Lastly, I think that academia also has to let go a little bit of your arrogance, in the sense that I think that academics tend to think that they know it all. So when you approach a conversation with a practitioner, often this, I know it all, I know what I'm talking about, I've done the research. It can be quite off-putting for people who are running, and they feel like, look, we don't have time, we are not, this is not what we are interested in. So I think that sometimes that becomes a barrier to having engagement, so that also needs to be considered. Now, proactivity from industry. And here I'm very proud to also add and say that since the latter part of last year, we started an initiative, and I'm speaking about my employer, Pollard. We started an initiative, which is a corporate social investment initiative, that is called Pollard X Academia. Now, this partnership is specifically to be proactive and intentional when it comes to fostering the next generation of leaders. And it brings me to that aspect about industry being intentional. In order for us to bridge this perceived or real gap, there has to be intentionality. So on our side as industry, coming back to academia and saying, hey, let's sit together. What can we do for you? What's our widow's mite we can do to shift the needle just a little bit? So partnerships like that. And I'm really proud to say that Pollard has partnered with GIJ, and we've literally just started. Our relationship just started, but we recently had a mentoring day. I think it was brilliant. We've had opportunity to engage with some of these students as resource personnel. We are doing the typical things like funding 1 or 2 scholarships here, but also making ourselves available to the school, because we understand that in order for things to move forward, for us to catch up, leapfrog all of the fancy terms, we really have to work hand in hand. So that's the proactivity angle from industry and practitioners. Then also there is, and of course we have to be available. We have to make ourselves available. I do agree with the point about the fact that if you bring me a sheet of papers with questionnaire, I promise you to sit on my desk for a long time. But if you send me a simple link that has maybe 7 specific questions, I am more likely to respond to that. And if also you say, hey, I'm working on this research, what are your thoughts about how we should approach it? I'm more likely to engage that after you come back and you said, oh, here's the research. You get my point. So, okay. Then the third part, and I'm speaking directly to students here, is proactivity from you. And the little I've heard and seen here today, all of us here on the panel, most likely were very involved in school. What's that term they say? Don't let the school pass through or pass through the school. You have to pass through the school, right? Yes.
The school has to pass through. The school has to pass through.
If the school passes through, that doesn't mean
you are good.
Yeah. So one thing is that we have been proactive in our lives, and we didn't start today. The proactivity started from places like here, school, involved in as many activities as possible. And I love that point about the fact that the university is not just about the learning. The number of skills. I was a student politician. I campaigned to be faculty president. I was secretary of my JCR. I was, what again? I was everywhere. I worked at Focus FM. I was a radio presenter. There are so many things that I did on campus. At some point, my parents had to say, hey, madam, are you in school to finish this degree in economics? So you are there to be all over the place. Yes, you have to have a balance. But the truth is that when I walked into the working world, I kid you not, I think that my ability to pick things up and run with it was also based on the fact that I had that experience on campus. So you have to know that
life is not, and I really love that point about life not being handed to you. So if you sit down and you think you're going to learn, tick all the boxes, do what you are told. And that's the biggest problem. Doing what you are told, learn, does not get you anywhere. You have to engage. You have to be interested. You have to be available. And I think this brings me to the fact that nothing ventured, nothing gained. But I wanted to make this point. Yes, I said it's about mindset, but here's what I really mean about mindset. You need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to read wide. You need to explore. You are lucky. You are born into a world, or you are coming into your own in a world that is at your fingertips. The world is literally your oyster. Nothing stops you from saying, I'm a PR person. I wonder what's going on in God knows where, Europe. I wonder what's going on in America. How do I differentiate myself? And you say, okay, click, and you discover, oh, there's a platform called PR Daily. There's a platform called what? Provoke. Then you say, oh, and everybody has a free subscription service. Put your email in. Every week they'll send you stories. They'll send you, here's what's happening. Here's how things work. Here's this, here's that. Social media is all well and good. It's fantastic. It's fun. But what about you start clicking, following people who are doing things in different places just for the sake of it? Just for fun. So that proactivity, in my opinion, is what translates and transforms the education you are receiving now to make you ready for the real world. Because there's only so much this great institution can do for you within the limits that they have. And I think that, like I said from the beginning, maybe let me wrap up with this. I want to congratulate GIJ because, frankly speaking, if you look at all the points I've mentioned, GIJ is ticking the box. And I think that's what it's doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I would want to begin by first commending the faculty for putting this program together. And I want to, on this point, encourage the students and open your mind to the fact that you guys are exposed to a very great faculty that you have to tap into. Joyce has spoken elaborately about the influence of people like Mr. Jill on her practice. And for me, a lot of the things, I know, or a lot of the things I picked up were from people like Paulina Kwalichi, Mr. Jill himself, and I always remember his Kickstart catalog when I think about advertising. So please take advantage of the faculty, both in terms of knowledge, in terms of their networks that they have. And that's the first point that I would want to make. The second point is that other speakers have concentrated on the link between practitioners and researchers or academicians or academia, and how at that very level they can share information. I want to concentrate a bit on how that collaboration can inure to the benefit of the students so that their skills are up to par. I think that, and I know some lecturers do, but others don't, that the research that you do and the new theories that you do, you must find the practical equivalent for it and show the students in the classroom. I know that skill development may be an overhaul for academia to do, because it is not everything that academia is supposed to do. You as a student should go out there and try and get your skills or have the knowledge to be ready for the world out there. But since we are talking about how industry, how corporate practice and academia can collaborate to make our students better, I think that all of the research should feed into the teaching. So for example, COVID has become a very prominent issue, and I'm sure, like Doc was saying, there have been several research on it. Any student graduating within this COVID era should be able to understand how brands behave, should be able to have on top of his head what are some of the very identical things that governments employ in terms of deploying their communication, to achieve success and all of that. So that is it. And also theories like two-way symmetry. Students learn it and all of that, but they should be pointed that its practical equivalent is, say, the use of your website to elicit feedback or social media engagement and all of that. They should be pointed to the fact that evaluation when you have done evaluation and all of that, in the practical world out there, you must show press coverage report. There must be shown samples of these things, infographics and all of that, so that they are able to marry the theory they are hearing or learning with what happens practically out there. So that would be my focus. The last thing I would want to say is that I don't know how we go about it, but is that can there be a collaboration which creates opportunities and makes the corporate communications students or graduates or practitioners more relevant to organizations? And this is what I have observed. Professions like law, let me use lawyers. The Ghana Bar Association has played a very instrumental role for the perception that people have about lawyers and for the demand for the skills of lawyers. And like we're saying, the excellence theory says PR must be practiced at the very top and all of that. But the people at the very top do not recognize that because there is no corporate compulsion or organizational compulsion on them, and they do not see until most of them run into problems. Can there be a collaboration maybe with IPR? I don't know. I don't know whether there can be a legislation that can be passed around the practice. I don't know. I am thinking, I don't know, maybe if we are able to identify that there is a problem within the space that has a national character, so we must create a regulatory framework for it. So that if you are setting up businesses, a key unit should be a communications unit. I mean, not all business, but the business at a certain level. A communication unit, so that opportunities are created for our students out there. Lastly, I would want to say that all the points that have been made for you, the student, comes down to one thing. That while the lecturers will give you the theories, sometimes practitioners will come in, it behoves on you to try and sharpen your skills while here. Not all of us can be student politicians. I agree that gives us exposure and all of that. But some of you have interest in fashion. Some of you have interest in movies. When latest movies are released, what do? You can simply write a review of that. If you are interested in fashion, how do you try and hone your skills and put yourself out there? The biggest event that has happened now is the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. You can do the fashion on display. You can do a review of it. So the point is that, please, everything comes down to you. You are supposed to pick all the skills within all of the curricula, both academic one and extracurricular that you are exposed to, and make yourself better, so that when you step out there, you can beat your chest and say, I can do this, and this is the contribution I'm bringing to corporate communication.
Thank you so much. I want to add, and on fashion, he's so right. So I work with Blisco, Woodin, and GTP. He's so right. We do not have people who are really writing on fashion, and it's a big deal. I'll tell you. So if you can become that person, teach yourself, and become that person from now, and even start having blog, and it's a big industry, looking at where the world is going. So that's a great business idea.
Great. My concluding remarks before we go for our coffee break, and then we'll come for questions. My concluding remarks are that I have had an opportunity to work with people who have no theoretical background, and that can be very dangerous. I've also had an opportunity to work with people who have just theoretical background and no practical background, and that can be very dangerous. My conclusion would be that these two fields should be complementary rather than competitive towards each other. And let me also say that as a practitioner, you have the opportunity to practice for a very long time. In school, you are just there for a diploma 2 years, for a degree, maybe extra 2 years or 4 years, for a master's a year. You cannot compare what you learn within a year to what you learn over a job that is done for 15 years, for 20 years, and that sort of thing. And so I think that the two fields should be complementing each other. At this point, we'll take our coffee break. Prof, do you want to give your closing remarks now, or you want us to?
I actually think we get on that. Let's not. Yes.
Take the questions.
All right, so how many questions are we taking? Can we have a number so because of time?
If we can do 10 good questions, then I'm sure.
Can we reduce it to 5?
5, okay, great. 5 questions.
And let me say that some of the panelists would hang around when the program is done for further interactions. And I say this to students all the time. Some of us would go only because we want to take pictures. Others would go because we want to build networks. So you may want to choose what you want to do.
So questions at this juncture. We have questions. Students? Great. One question here.
All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to appreciate the faculty and also the Institute for the event. I think one of the things that I have realized is, most times we have industry players, like we have Marcus Fossey here, we have Benjamin Alpha here, people who have been through a particular institute. How do we integrate mentorship into the school system? Also having people who have been through the same school, trying to pick about 5 people from the school to teach them what they have already learned in the industry. Thank you. My name is Smart Station Extra, I'm an alumni of GIA.
Great question. Great question. And before the panelists answer, please, if you have questions, I need the 4 people to come up, sit over there so that we can see them when they answer. They ask their question, we answer, then we get this session done. Yes. So panelists, who wants to take it, please?
I think I'll start.
Great.
So it shouldn't be that structured where I say I want to come to GID and have 5 mentees. If you approach me, now you don't have to know my office or get my phone number. You can just Google my name, you see my LinkedIn account, Instagram. People send messages on Instagram, all the platforms. Say, I want ABC from you. I'm working on this project, I want your thoughts. You may not outrightly say, I want you to mentor me. I'll just say, I have this project. I've done this work. I want to have a close look at it. Can I send you via email or WhatsApp? You send to me, I give you feedback. You work on it and say, this is my finished work. From there, a relationship starts. Don't call it, don't have a name and say, oh, this is a mentorship relationship. This is a friend of yours you've recently had. So I don't want us to have a whole structure to it. Then it makes it tricky. Because if you tell me we should have a mentorship relationship, then I'll start saying, oh, do I have time? I don't have time. My schedule is packed. But you send me a quick email. Look at this work for me. I'll squeeze time, give you feedback. You go, whatever you're using it for, whether it's for academics or it's for galamsey or it's for work. At least I have contributed my bit. I do mentorship for people outside of Ghana, and they don't even call it mentorship. We just have a relationship where I want your thoughts on this, or what do you think about this presentation, or there's this crisis situation. These are my thoughts on it as an industry person. What do you think? I've heard about Vena. I've seen reports on social media. Just normal conversations. I don't like the tag that, oh, this is my mentor. It's fine, okay. But once I'm conscious that this is what you want from me, then I start evaluating. Will I make time for it? But normal conversations, we all have them with our friends from church, school, work, and all of that. So we shouldn't really add structure to it and say 5, 10, 15. If you give me 5, I can't accommodate 5. But we can have conversations with, say, 10 people from GIJ, and it won't even occur to me that I'm mentoring 10 people around the same time. Yeah.
Can I
Yes.
ask that? Okay, so there are 2 sides to it. There is the informal one. I mean, there are people I have followed all these years, and I call them my mentors, and I've had the opportunity to meet them, and I don't hide it from them. But I never had to sit down with them and put a structure to it. So, and these are people I'll follow anytime. I'm studying them. The person does this, I want to do the same thing and stuff like that. But there is also the structured one, where there's an organization called the Comms Avenue, where some of us are part of the mentorship team. We have people from all over the world or Africa that we are mentoring. And like you said, sometimes it's even difficult to even get the time, because there is a time to it. It's difficult to get the time to do what you want to do. But that structured one is also there so that at least you can list that these are the people I'm mentoring and all. But I think that both ways it can be done. And people who want to be mentees should be ready to learn. Some people will reach out to you to say, I want you to mentor me. I have, I think about 10 or so students from Ghana who met me at an event and said they wanted me to mentor them. I created a platform. I put a question there. Can I get your responses? And I'm still waiting. I don't know what I'm supposed to be telling you. Once in a while I'll drop a word. Once in a while I'll drop a video, something that I found interesting. And talk back to me. Talk back to me so that I know that you're getting what I'm saying.
Great, fantastic. I think we have a second one here. Yes.
So mine has to do with, in terms of power and responsibility sharing, is there a possibility where we can integrate the function of marketing, PR, and advertising, looking at the trends that's ongoing now?
Can I?
Cynthia and then Dr. Abunatsu can come.
I'm not too sure I understand her question.
Moving away, not moving away from academia, practicing what is happening in the trends now. Is there a way to integrate the function? You know, there are some companies that will not have a physical office for a PR person to play their function in. How then are we then able to integrate this? Do you always have to segment a particular office, or you want to imagine responsibility? How then are you able to?
So it's more of an integrated marketing organization.
What was the power part? What you started off with power.
Yes.
Power and responsibility.
So in a typical company, you find marketers or advertisers or communication plans say they are the key personalities in the company, sort of in the institution. So how then are you able to leverage and say power is not just on, it's not bent on one sector of the organization, but it's an integration of all the functions to make it successful.
I would even want to say that even with lately, when you come into the organization, and you can attest to it, and maybe Cynthia, you do not even, you don't have even hierarchies. Like even with the MD, my MD is called Fatu, she's Fatu, and that's what everybody calls her. And she's not the sole, although she has responsibility over all the company, everybody on the team is expected to be pulling their weight. And now, even for us as communicators, our role is changing. There's something from change management that is coming into PR and communication so strongly because of what is happening. Your internal publics are becoming very as key, and I think even these days, even more important than your reputation outside because of social media. Your employees can actually, lately you don't even need to advertise externally. Just share it on a company platform and it is news. So your employees are becoming a stronger force, right? And so you do not have time to be saying who has the power. Is it marketing, HR? That power is no more there. You are just there to focus on your job and deliver. Okay.
Yes. There is that kind of test in some organizations. But it's important that people are clear of what they are selling. And I think that there's been a bit of confusion between sales and marketing. Where people think that the communications people are only there for PR and cannot do anything much. But I think more and more forward-looking organizations are looking more at integrated marketing communication, knowing that you can combine all. All you need is to have the various people in the team and everybody playing their role.
Yes, and I want to say that, I also want to add that I go back to the context that I said, and then I agree with my sister who just spoke that some organizations, and I've always been a tester between PR and marketing, that, okay, so who should report to? When I started practice way back in 2001, I had to work 5 years under a marketing manager. So if the organization is a sales-focused driven organization, the emphasis on marketing. So I said that what we teach here, it is our responsibility to know the theories, to know them, but try to understand the context, how you want to apply, and how the body politics. And then this morning I was saying to somebody that when GIJ gives you some power of writing, you want to write anything. And I learned this thing from Doris Dante Blix. I know some of you might have known her. And I used to write, and I see down, and I write, and I complain, I write, and I complain, I write. Then one time I went to apply to become an IPR member, and I saw Doris Dante who was interviewing me. But now, then my chief executive, and I mentioned where I work, the bank I was working for, he said, I know you're chief. And I said, yes, then at least he made some call, and he came back, and he said, I bet you're a very troublesome guy. And I said, Auntie Doris, why? He said, I also have to serve as a board secretary at a point in time, so I have access to all the managers, and the board chairman used to be somebody I go to church with. So I write, and I write, and I write. Then he said something, do you really understand the PR you are practicing, Doris? And I thought he was attacking me, but she helped me, she gave me a very good advice. And she said, do you know lobbying? Did somebody teach you lobbying at GIJ? And I quickly rattled it, lobbying, blah, 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 blah. And I said, can you define it or you know it? Defining it and knowing it are two different things. And I said, young man, if you want to progress in the corporate ladder, learn lobbying, learn strategic relationship development. Right? So these are some of the things that nobody will tell you in the PR class, even up to the PhD level. I started the Prof is much more experienced than I am. Whether he learned it, I didn't learn it in any classroom. But I learned it through people who spoke to me, who had interest in my development and wanted to see me grow. So PR and marketing, therefore, I fought. I realized that I wasn't winning. So what did I do? They said if you cannot beat them, you join them. I registered the same. I chatted the same. So now when the marketing people are talking, I can also talk some. When the PR people are, so make yourself relevant. That's what I want to say. Integration is the key.
That's right.
Thank you.
So can I just add mine before we move from this question? I think that if you're looking for the middle ground, I practice at the middle ground. So I am in charge of marketing and corporate affairs, right? Now I can tell you that the reason why, and if I say so myself, the reason why I am so impactful at my work is really because of the PR side of who I am. And I'll tell you why. Because storytelling, the art of storytelling, understanding how storytelling is important, is what makes marketing go further. Now, I think this is probably the right time to also mention that for PR people, and coming back to some of the points my co-panelists have brought in, we do not know how to sell ourselves, sell our relevance, understand why we are important enough to sit at the table. Now, when it comes to that conversation, traditionally, PR has always been subsumed under marketing. Now, in the world that we are living in now, it's a very visual world. It's a very story-based world. The opportunity has arisen for us to really, make an impact by owning the narrative, by being proactive, by coming to the table and saying, hey, I think this is how we should approach our next campaign to sell so and so. So yes, I get that marketing, the company is a sales-based company, a sales-focused company. The focus might be on marketing, but my argument here is that from my experience, straddling the two, I can tell you that even in heavily sales-focused companies, when you have a communications function that is doing what it's supposed to do, that is on top of trends, that understands its stakeholders, you will have that refinement and that differentiation.
I agree.
And that's what's important. So I get your question about, maybe you didn't state it as sharply, but I get your question about the power dynamics, but also about the integration. And the truth is, for many of you here, one thing I also tell you is this: you may be comms people, but you need to understand, learn, and know what's happening in the world. So if you think you are just a comms person, you are coming to do comms and go away, your value will not be stated when you walk into the world. Because what happens is you need to understand a little bit of, like Noah, right? Said, he said, he's got to do marketing, he's got to do this. Your ability to be impactful, your ability to understand your stakeholders, your ability to even craft the right messaging is based on your understanding. You need to learn a bit of what finance people do.
Yes.
You need to learn a bit of what the business development people do. You need to understand HR is a function that is so vital, and I know that Joyce can speak to this. Because for us, we work hand in hand with HR people. Like you said, for me, frankly speaking, you'd be surprised the way I use the staff of my company.
Yes.
They are my influencers, my
right.
advocates, my everything. But you also have to understand the dynamics of HR in order to apply that.
Yes.
You have to understand what is your business. We work in a field where we can work anywhere. That is the beauty of jobs. I can get up and move from insurance today and go to what? To football,
Yes.
to something else. All because the basics are there. Applying what you know, applying common sense, applying the skill set that you have, and of course the basics and the theories is what is important.
Right.
So for all of you here, you're a coach person. I'll ask you, and so what? That's what really matters. So I hope we've been able to give you some perspective on that question.
Great. I think even your answers have been largely extensive to other questions that are coming. So I think we have 2 more left, or just 1 more left? 2, right? So the last 2, then I'm sure we'll just get a closing remarks from the Deputy Director.
Yes, well, thank you very much. My name is Iboy. I want to find out, in the dominant advertising function, how can PR practitioners discard the fear of being second fiddle?
I think I just answered that.
That's almost the question that was
But
or maybe there's something more that you want to hear. There's something more you want to hear.
Did you get the response very well? Where we spoke about you showing value and why you are there beyond just saying you are a comms person. I think it plays out in that particular area. So, madam, we'll take your question and then we are done.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to know, with the growing recognition of the benefits of the integrated approach to communication planning, how should PR practitioners position themselves in view of opportunities and challenges?
Once again, I feel like
yes,
the responses have touched on.
Yes, so
I don't know the new perspectives you want, but your question speaks to your positioning as a comms person in the light of integrated, the disciplines getting integrated. That is what Cynthia spoke about. And that is why your course introduces you to different aspects. You are doing comms, but you have different aspects. You are learning something about event marketing, because events in and of themselves are PR too. You are learning something about advertising, all right? You are learning something about brand management and all of that. So all of these are different disciplines but interrelated. And when you walk into an organization, you are going to be confronted with a contextual reality like Dr. Kano was talking about. You go to some organizations and the HR does basically everything. Now, how do you get in there as an entry-level person?
And unseat the HR.
You must be able to.
No. So unseat the HR in terms of communication.
Yeah, so you may not be able
because
to,
they play the communication role.
Yeah, you may not be able to, if you want to take your communication skills in there straight away, you may not be able to enter.
Yeah.
Because the HR person has done that over time.
Yeah.
So how do you provide value to the HR unit? And then over time, let them understand that the HR function cannot exist without these other services. And when you begin to provide that value, you will be recognized. You walk into an organization that is marketing focused. How do you provide value for that marketing function? And over time, highlight and delineate your PR and communication value to them. So that's the most important aspect. Learn all of these things. All of them are integrated.
Can I just say something? We are also missing a vital perspective. Sorry, let me just jump in here. I think we are missing a vital perspective from agency side. Now, I'm what I call an agency rat, because I've worked in so many agencies, and I hope you know consultancies, basically, comms consultants. Yeah. And I think that halfway here might have that perspective, because a lot of us now may be speaking from an in-house perspective.
Yes.
And the truth is that point you're making is when you are as a consultant, when you're working in an agency, you are going today, you're sitting in front of a gold mining company. Tomorrow you're sitting in front of an agri company. So if you had, when you were reading PK's profile, you will do everything some, as we like to say. At the end of the day, how do you get up and work from school and suddenly work in a company where today they are asking you questions, you are going to say, oh, we understand how mining works, we know what to do, stakeholder engagement. Then tomorrow you are even talking about AI. Then the next day you are talking about agri in some bush. if you don't pick that ability to be adapt, to adapt and understand, think quickly, where are you going? So I've stolen your point for you, Father.
I was just going to be an academic and a teacher in the room.
Okay.
So when the two people stood up and they had written questions, I was anxious already. Because what it meant is that they probably were so busy crafting the questions, they were not listening to the discussion. And so they ended up asking questions that have just been answered. And that you want to pay attention to.
And I'd like to add, so one of the relevance that you take actually is the connections that you make here. So I'll tell you, the person seated by you, right, is one of your greatest connections in 2 years' time. Because some of you are going to PR, some of you are going to into the media, some of you are going to agency. And I'll tell you, my life has been made easier by having all these people around you. Do not, and it becomes a great value when you enter into the company, because who you know, I have to do a lot of government engagement, and my boss will say, you know everybody in Ghana. It's not true. I know Pakwesi, who knows a lot of people, who, when I want someone from the finance ministry, he can get it for me. And that's because in school, we were, and as I said, we were working all together to the junction. And also, when we were giving team assignments, you did it. Because if you didn't do it, if you come back there, if we come back on the field and you ask me for a favor, I'm not ready. I mean, when you were in school, you were doing nothing, you didn't pull your weight. So one of your greatest value that you bring to the job is actually your connections. For PR people, advertising, even when you're going to get an advertising agency, you'll get an agency that your friend is in that you can, because agencies will tell you, this is not in the contract, this is not in the contract, this is not in the contract. But if I know Pakwesi, we can go behind the contract and say, I know it is not in the contract, but please help me with this. And he would do it because of the connections. So one of the greatest value, whether marketing, comms, PR agency, advertising, your value really, your connections, and what you bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So currently, we finished school at a time where I saw my brother, Mr. Lushuga, in school around the same time. Joyce was around the same time. Manasseh. These are people who are controlling things at the key media stations, at the all areas of life. Now we have people in our circles where any contact that you need, they'll get it for you. So you sometimes we look too beyond. We think, oh, our help can come from some mentor that we met or a guy who came to guest lecture. It's inside this room. Because 5-10 years from now, you have someone on your team being an editor, being a PR head. Now my mates are like, oh, Pakwesi works here. He's a PR manager. If you need anyone for internship, speak to him. It's a connection. Okay, if we start thinking this person won't amount to anything, he's not worth connecting with. Partner with your friends. Great. Beyond partnering with mentors and all the big boys. Start taking your friends seriously from now.
Fantastic stuff by panelists. Yes, at this juncture, we would like to invite our own father, Professor Wansa, to come in and give us closing remarks. Afterwards, we will have Dr. George Abnasawa, Head of Marketing, to also come and give the vote of thanks. Please, let's all stay behind. There will be some citations as well. Great. Let's give Bob more. Let's give everyone a clap as we get our program ready. Thank you. Yes, Bob.
Thank you very much. I get very worried when in a room full of people like that.
You start calling me a old father. It makes me look very old. I promise you I'm not that old. Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity. So much has been said that it is going to be extremely difficult for me to try it somewhere that I won't at all. But as we spoke, now, as I listened and as we all spoke, I made a few comments. So I'm going to be very brief. But I want to start off with a little personal story. So I lived all my academic life outside Ghana. Then I came to America, Ghana Institute of Technology. And then I joined Vice Chancellor's Ghana, I was doing assistant Vice Chancellor's Ghana. And coming into this position, I've done all sorts of things in the school. Coming into this position, I really came in blind because I was completely out of this environment. So I wanted up on a whole lot of things. So one day, I gathered a number of vice chancellors around and said to them, and especially those that had been pro-vice chancellors before. So I asked them, you were pro-vice chancellors before. What you encountered or what you encounter on a regular basis as vice chancellor? Did you have any idea what it was going to be like when, before you got in there? And they all said without exception, at the very best, what you do as pro-vice chancellor will give you an idea of 10% of what to expect when you get there. When you get there, it's a whole different ballgame. And I'll tell this story to buttress the fact that academia, or when you are in school, you will get a whole lot of things. And the connections especially that everyone has talked about are absolutely important. I think that's why you go to school. All the book stuff is not necessary. They are very important. But industry, or where work, the world of work, it's a whole different context and a whole different setting as well. Absolutely not everything that you find there you will learn from academia. And so when you go into industry, it's an opportunity to actually go, I have learned these things here. Now here is where I start learning some other new things. And it is the job of industry to teach those that come in the things that industry does. We can teach you everything that we know as academics. But there's the house style. I used to, and I still complain about GBC insisting that they will say things in the passive rather than the active. But that's the house style. I hate it with all my heart, but they will still do it. And I complain whenever I meet them, but that's the house style. The fact that you have been in my class and I have taught you that use the active tense is more engaging doesn't mean that when you go to GBC and they say this is how we do it, you say no. No. So you have to go there and they're going to teach you the house style. So there is, as I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is that there is that difference. But I also want to say this in association with that all good practice is underpinned by theory. Whether you know it or not, or whether you think about it or not. Because when you're going to go and do something, theory is just your own theoretical ideas or thinking about how something works. If you want to say something to somebody, how you say it, you are thinking, well, if I say it in this way, it might help me. How are you thinking that way? That's the theory behind you. You're thinking about, so we tend to think about theory as something sitting somewhere. And then you have to put it in somebody's mind, and then they can leave it there and then go and do something. No. So there is really, and there should be no great divide between theory and practice as we tend. And if we actually think about it that way, then academia or academics would not be accused of being too theoretical. Because there is no theory about anything that doesn't exist in the real world. All theories are framed around what happens. It's basically how we think the real world works. So if you're being too theoretical, where? On Mars? No, it is all about what's happening here. I like what my new G-mate, Abner, said about the two issues of resources. Resources, and no one can talk about that better than myself. I have contractor space in New York. I like this building and all of that. But the fact that it took about 22 or 23 years to complete this building tells you something about the resources and how very difficult it is. So we are being denied of resources, especially public institutions, the resources that we need to actually give students what we need. But at the same time, we are being asked, well, when you are thinking about it, assessing charges $4,000 or something like that. And it's good for people who can pay, they will give it to you. GID, you ask students to pay $2,900 or $2,500, they are demonstrating. With mobile phones, that costs more than their school fees. There is something to say about the value system that we talk about. And I think that even though we might talk about it and laugh, it's actually important for us to think about the value systems that we have in school and that we bring to industry and the world of work when we live here. I also wanted to make this point that there is from the academy to industry, there is a continuum, but also there is room for academia to be academia, academics to be academics for being academics' sake, and also for industry to be industry for being industry sake. There is a reason why they are two distinct sectors. So we need to work together definitely for the good of all, and what we need to speak to each other, absolutely important. But we must also make room in this conversation to understand that sometimes academics just have to be academics. Because there's a reason why academics are academics. And if they want to use, as some people say, big grammar, let them use big grammar. There's a reason why big grammar exists. And if industry people need to speak their industry language sometimes, it is important for them to, when we do these things, industry, academia, we are speaking sometimes in those situations to different audiences. And so we must make room in the conversation for a place where academics are academics, industry people are industry people. And then we recognize actually the links between the two and the importance of those links for moving us all in the society forward. And I think it's an important point to make. Then the individual, I mean, everybody said it. It is your drive, your personal drive and everything. One day, a few months ago, some group of people said to do some presentation or speak or something about my journey to professorship. So I decided that, okay, I will do a little search for the people that I started teaching, working with in Australia, when I started as an academic 20-something years ago. And I found out that for all these years, none of them, these are 10, 15 people, none of them has actually become a full professor. But I have. It is so much not because I am the smartest amongst them, but once, for me personally, once I accidentally found myself in academia, and that's a different story, but once I found myself in academia, I decided that if I'm here, then I'm going to be the best academic that I can be, and I want to be right at the top. I don't know what the others thought and what they did, but I made that decision and I got there. It is always, always without fail, as you can see here, what you, the individual, want to be and what we bring to it. So for our students, it is up to you. When you are given an assignment, whether you want to do it yourself and learn, or whether you want to using the term, the popular term, outsource, so you can get the grades. It's up to you. But know that if you outsource, you are not learning anything. You might have the grades, but as they said, when you attend the interview, it is about how you present yourself, what you have to offer, and not what grades you have. So finally, I don't want to drag this. A word on galamsey. I need to do this. So I'm glad Noel explained what Galamsey is, and when he was explaining Galamsey, I find it quite amusing because I have personally been involved in Galamsey about Galamsey. Yes, so I did some consultancy work, and it was to do with preparing a communication strategy for dealing with Galamseyers. Basically, Galamseyers, yes, the use of what you call mercury in Galamsey money, all of that kind of thing. We don't frown on Galamsey. We don't frown on Galamsey in academia. We recognize the importance of it. There are rules and regulations as to how you do it. That's all we ask for, that you do it the right way. Because we understand that there is the need to link to industry, give back to industry, and take from industry. And so that industry-academia nexus is absolutely important to us. And I'm sure for many of us around here anyway, if you ask, we all have some dealings with industry in some kind of consultancy role. If we were that bad, if we were that theoretical, we wouldn't be doing this. So we don't count on Galamsey. It's a good thing, a good source of knowledge for academics to bring back into the classroom, but also to give back into the industry, because that nexus is absolutely important. And also talking about that nexus, I was telling Prof. Deputy here that in Australia, what we used to do, every communication program that I headed and we had put together, we had an industry panel that we needed to consult on every program before it passed accreditation. So you put a program, you send it to industry and say, give us input on what you think you might need also from industry and the areas that you think we might do. So that together, because in as much as we are producing them within an academic context, we need them to be able to go to industry and function. So that kind of relationship and that kind of partnership is absolutely important. So it's something that I would say to Prof. Deputy here, that we'll think about and pick up at GID as well. And on that note, I have a lot more to say, but I won't. I will leave it here. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much. But Prof, before you leave, Prof, if you will indulge me for just a little while, we have some citations for our panelists, which I believe would just come from your hand. So if you could have the citations, then please. Madam Sophia. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes. And Dr. Bosman, please, if you could come. Please let's give him a big round of applause. Please let's give him a big round of applause. Dr. Abner as well, please. Prof. Owen. Yes. Great. Good. If we could have Mr. Forsing also come up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Our very own Benjamin Alpha. Thank you. Yes, Cynthia as well. Please, Cynthia, if you could get ready. I'd also like to ask Joyce if she could go in for this as well. Great, let's give it a big round of applause. The lecturer of this course, Mr. Vincent.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was very nice. I wasn't going to come and say anything, but I'm just minded by what Joyce just said to me. She said, I can almost guarantee you that tomorrow the headlines are going to be GIG Rector says Galamsey is good. Please, let me clarify it. Academics doing extra work in industry, with industry, is what we call within our academic balance Galamsey. And that is what I'm saying we encourage. And there are rules on how to do it, not the actual Galamsey that has become a blight on our country. So please, if there are any reporters here, don't do that. If you do that, I will sue you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give Prof. Rector a big round of applause, please. A big one. Thank you so much. At this juncture, we are almost done. We'd like to invite Dr. George Asamoah to come and give us the book of thanks.
Good afternoon. I, on behalf of the Faculty of Advertising and Marketing, as called FUPAM, want to say thank you, most especially to our rector for chairing this function for us. From everything, we are most grateful for your contribution. Our Dean, Dr. Sandor, our panelists, thank you for coming. Without you, this program would never be possible. And to our hard-working team, talking about Mr. Luciga, Mr. Nitaki, and the name of Mr. Kennedy, round of applause. We want to say thank you to you guys. You've done a yeoman's job. I also want to thank our colleagues, both teaching and non-teaching staff, for also coming in to support us. And to the students for your efforts. We are most grateful. I thank you once again, and we all have to go and continue our jobs. We are most grateful.
Great. Clap for the evening. Let him know your love. Thank you. Yes, when we started with prayer. So when we are ending, we have to end with another one. So Miss Sule, if you are around, Miss Sule, where is Miss? Okay, then let's have you come and speak for us. I think everyone wants to hear Reverend Israel.
Shall we please bow down our heads and pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for beginning with us as we called upon you to do so. We thank you for your grace and your mercy. The wisdom that has been shared here is only by your grace. Father, we thank you and pray that let this program live on, that a year by now we'll gather again and share wisdom. And Father, all the things that we have recommended, help us to practically do them and to move forward as a faculty and as an institution and all the industries that have been further congregated here. We thank you and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Thank you so much. So at this juncture, we will have the break for our panelists, invited guests and management, and also faculty who are around. But we will have a quick photo shoot with management and panelists as well. And then